Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if neglected Naruto bijuu level harem council bashing. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by reallyfreakingnerdy and link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. Konoha, 8 years after the Kyuubi attack, a small silver-haired boy was running frantically through the forest that surrounded Konoha as he cautiously looked behind to see if his pursuers were still on his tail. He was a very cute child, well he would have been if he wasn't so malnourished and covered in wounds from a recent mob attack. This is our hero Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Twin brother of Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, well, as far as she knew, and son of the Yondaime Hokage Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze. Why was Naruto running into a forest after a mob beating? The answer was quite simple. During the attack by the Kyuubi no Kitsune the Sandaime Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, sacrificed his life to seal the Kyuubi into Naruto and Naruko. He sealed its chakra into Naruko and its soul into Naruto. This allowed Minato and Kushina to survive the attack and raise their children. While it seemed like a good ending, the ramifications of Sarutobi's sacrifice quickly settled in. While Naruko was seen as a hero for taking the Kyuubi's chakra and thus getting a powerful boost from it that would make her an absolute powerhouse later in life, Naruto was seen as a living reminder of the Kyuubi since he housed its soul. It didn't help that his hair changed color and he gained whisker marks unlike Naruko, who was a carbon copy of Kushina. Because of her perceived higher potential, Minato and Kushina took more of an interest in Naruko and thus slowly began neglecting Naruto. Nowadays Naruto could leave for a day and return home battered and bruised and his parents wouldn't even notice. The only person who really ever paid attention to Naruto in the Namikaze Uzumaki household was Naruko, who loved her Ani-chan the mostest. In her own words. In order to deal with his loneliness, Naruto sought out others for comfort, leading to him befriending the Hyuga clan heir Hinata. He had helped her with a trio of bullies when her guardian wasn't around and subsequently becoming a fixture at her clan compound. Hiashi and his wife Hitomi had a falling out with Minato and Kushina over Naruto's treatment. Hinata would try to spend as much time as possible with him, and even her younger sister Hanabi would constantly try to garner his attention and affection. The other person to help Naruto with his loneliness was a young girl named Anko Mitarashi. She too was treated badly because of her being the student of the traitor Orochimaru. They met when Naruto witnessed a couple of drunken civilians throwing bottles and insults at her one day, and Naruto, after getting his anger under control, started to throw rather heavy rocks at them. The civilians would wake up the next day with fractured skulls and no memory of the prior day. Anko was surprised by this gesture and took the young boy out for some dango. The two had been close ever since. On a side note, Anko was then introduced to Hitomi Hyuga, who took her under her wing, and thus Anko too became part of the Hyuga household over time. Unfortunately, neither party could always look after Naruto, so he was still attacked from time to time by mobs of civilians, with the occasional shinobi thrown in. That was why he was in the forest. It served as a bit of a sanctuary for him. For some reason he found he could speak with the foxes that inhabited the area, since no one would follow him after a while. Too bad for Naruto, today would be different. I think I lost them. Naruto said while trying to stay upright as his body was racked with huffs and pants. He never noticed the presence of the gray-haired Chunin Mizuki. Mizuki hated Naruto with a passion since he blamed him for the death of his girlfriend 8 years ago. It helped that the civilian council was paying him quite handsomely for what he was about to do too. Sneaking up behind the young boy, Mizuki knocked him unconscious with a brutal punch to the back of the head. "Heh, not too strong now are you? You demonic piece of shit." Mizuki growled out as he picked up Naruto and walked further into the forest. Several hours later, at the edge of a swift-running river, "Time to be rid of you, demon," Mizuki said as he smirked and threw the tied-up Naruto into the river. Only staying long enough to watch him awaken in a panic due to the cold water and start frantically trying to get out of his bindings as he was swept away under the river, almost being assured a cruel death. Feeling immensely satisfied with himself, Mizuki started to travel back to the village in order to celebrate. He had quite a sum of money waiting for him after all. In the council room, Konoha around noon the next day, Minato Namikaze was staring into space as a civilian council member rambled on and on over some stupid ordinance they wanted. He managed to figure out the secret to defeating paperwork, yet he still couldn't figure out how to deal with these assholes. As he berated himself a bit more, the nagging feeling of something not being quite right kept coming to the forefront of his mind. Recently he had heard rumors of his son Naruto getting attacked by mobs and his own shinobi, but he had dismissed that quickly enough. Who would be stupid enough to attack the Hokage's son? Besides, surely his own shinobi would have enough respect for him and the Sandaime's sacrifice to regard Naruto as a hero like they did Naruto. As he thought on Naruto, Minato felt a wave of depression hit him. Not long ago he realized how much he had been neglecting Naruto and it was eating away at him. Kushina had also realized this, and both had decided to fix this as soon as possible. In fact, he had planned to personally start Naruto's shinobi training today after this meeting. After several more hours, the meeting finally ended and Minato rushed home in order to see his son. But the moment he entered his home, he could hear his wife Kushina frantically running around and his daughter Naruko crying hysterically. Being incredibly alarmed, he rushed to the living room of his home as he saw Kushina yelling at an Anbu. "Kushi-chan. What's going on? Mina-kun. Naruto-chan never came home yesterday. No one has seen him since yesterday either." She blurted out in a rush as Naruko continued to cry herself hoarse. That foreboding feeling coming back in full force, Minato immediately ordered for the entire village to be turned inside out in the search for his son. This would prove to be the longest day he's had since the Kyuubi attack. With Naruto, washed up on the side of the river, Naruto had somehow survived being washed away well tied up, although he was suffering from multiple broken bones from being thrown around like a ragdoll. He was now laying on the riverbank as he drifted in and out of consciousness. "Why do they all hate me?" was his final thought before drifting off into unconsciousness. Naruto's mindscape. Naruto awoke with a start as he viewed the sewer around him. "But I thought I was on a riverbank," he confusedly thought as he continued down the sewer. As he walked for what felt like hours, he felt a strange pull that made him wish to run with wild abandon towards it. Reigning in this feeling, he followed the pull until he came upon a massive cage in an even more massive cave, with a seal on the middlemost bar. It seems I have company." A deep, powerful voice sounded as Naruto frantically looked around, but was met by nothing but the bars of the cage and the velvet darkness that obscured his vision when he tried to peer deeper into the cage. Who's there?" he frantically said, an edge of fear creeping into his voice. "Look closer, kid." Naruto followed the strange voice's advice and strained his eyes to peer into the darkness until suddenly, a pair of massive malice-filled eyes stared back at him. Understandably frightened, Naruto jumped backwards and tried to crawl away, but hit the cave wall. "Ha ha 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 ha. That was hilarious," said the voice as the darkness started to lift and the form of a giant red-furred nine-tailed fox was revealed. "Kyuubi," Naruto whispered in horrified awe. Everyone knew of Kyuubi and of the Sandium sacrifice to take the fox with him. It seemed there was a bit more to it than that though. "Why are you here? Where is here? Tell me," Naruto yelled. "Such a mouthy brat. Calm down before I get angry." Naruto instantly calmed down and tried not to enrage the giant fox by mouthing off. "We are in your mind. I'm here because killing an immortal chakra beast is more complicated than just doing a few hand signs and hoping for the best. I've been sealed into you, kid. Well, my soul was sealed into you. Well, the chakra is in your former sister. We are now together until you kick the bucket. Are you why most of the villagers hate me?" "And what do you mean by former sister?" Naruto asked in a heartbreaking tone. "Yes to the hatred. And I say former because without my chakra as a buffer, my soul has been warping your body. Fundamentally changing it so that it will be able to take the strain of such a corruptive thing as I. Basically, you aren't exactly human anymore, and your so-called family isn't related to you any more than a human is to an ape." Kyuubi said with obvious pride at the corruptive powers of a bijuu's soul. "So I'm just a monster?" Naruto asked with hysteria starting to grip his heart as he felt his world crumbling around him. "You should know better than to think of everything in such shades of black and white," Kyuubi said while curling up into a more comfortable position. Naruto realized the fox was right. He had never done anything that made him evil, yet the upstanding civilians of the Leaf often attacked him. "Why yeah. Thanks, Kyuubi. So what happens now?" How about a deal, kid? Your body is changing, and I can guide those changes so that they will be beneficial instead of a massive gamble. I can also guide you in the arts of warfare and survival. I can understand the body changing thing, but how do you know about the way humans fight? I've been alive for a very long time, kid. And let's leave it at that. So, do we have a deal? Depends. What do you get out of this?" Naruto shrewdly asked. Smart move in asking, kid. I would have turned you into an insane little murder machine that never rested otherwise. What I want is simple. There is a man out there that has caused me more problems than anyone else I have ever had the displeasure of knowing. You're to track him down and kill him. That is all. Seems rather simple. Okay, I agree to this deal," Naruto said after taking a moment to think on it. "Good. Let us get started. Now I need you to die," Kyuubi said in a rather happy tone. "What?" was Naruto's eloquent response before the world around him crumbled away and all he saw was darkness. Several days later, Konoha. Minato hadn't slept in days as he ran himself ragged looking for any lead on Naruto. He even recalled his sensei Jiraiya from his normal spymaster duties to look for Naruto, but alas there was nothing. Kushina herself found her time divided between consoling a now near permanently crying Naruto and looking for Naruto. Together, Kushina and Minato had found the ugly truth behind their neglect. Faced with the homicidal anger of two cage-level shinobi, anyone who was questioned confessed to how Naruto was treated by the village. At first the civilian council tried to object to this questioning of civilians, but this was remedied when one council member opened his fat mouth and, in a colossal moment of stupidity, bragged about how they dealt with the demon in honor of the late Sandium. After a brutal slaughter of the civilian council, Minato started a purge of the civilians associated with the council and any shinobi with similar leanings. This uncovered quite a bit of corruption previously kept buried underneath layers of complex wording and loopholes in the law. He had never been so ashamed of his village. The once idealistic leader found himself growing cynical in his sleep-deprived state and was wondering why he even bothered with these ungrateful piles of shit. But through all this he pushed on and through judicious use of several unsavory methods, finally had his sights on a cowering Mizuki. The two were alone in one of the dirtier rooms in the torture and interrogation department, dirt in this case, referring to the mass amounts of dried blood covering the room and several instruments of the trade. Mizuki had been captured trying to flee with a minor fortune sealed into a scroll after Minato had ordered a lockdown of the village. After politely asking several civilians Mizuki was known to be friendly with, Minato now had a sneaking suspicion Mizuki had a rather large hand in his son's disappearance. Mizuki was now tied to a chair with his chakras sealed off. "Mizuki, where did you get the money?" Minato asked, deciding to go with a straightforward approach. "From my duties as a shinobi Yondaime-sama," Mizuki said while trying to ape an air of calm and failing miserably as sweat poured off of him. "Lies. You have not been on enough missions to see the amount of money you had on you. In fact, the only people in the village with that kind of money would either be the clan heads or the now dead civilian council. I inherited it. From who?" At this Mizuki merely looked away and mumbled incoherently. Minato, deciding to give him some incentive on speaking, withdrew one of his signature tri-pronged kunai and quickly used it to sever the pinky and ring fingers on his left hand. "Ah!" he yelled in pain as Minato adopted an apathetic look on his face. "Talk. I don't know remember." "Wrong," Minato said as he cut off the remaining fingers on Mizuki's left hand. Mizuki, understandably, screamed for several minutes as he felt the pain of losing all of the fingers on his left hand. "Talk," Minato once again said. I was paid by a civilian council member," Mizuki said as he squirmed in pain. "For what?" Minato said as Mizuki once again went silent. This was fixed by Minato gathering Kaiten chakra into his kunai and cauterizing the small stumps where his fingers used to be on his left hand. "To be rid of the demon. Please. Just stop." "What did you do with my son?" Minato yelled out with a bestial fury, each word punctuated with a brutal bone-breaking punch to Mizuki's ribs or arms. "Ah. I tied him up and threw him into a river," Mizuki cried out. Hearing this, Minato took out a map and had Mizuki point out where he did this and describe the surroundings. Satisfied with this information, Minato walked out of the room and left a message for Ibiki on Mizuki's further treatment, make him regret living. In Naruto's mindscape, Naruto had been drifting in nothingness, for how long he did not know nor did he care. All he knew was that he felt nothing, saw nothing, heard nothing, tasted nothing and smelled nothing. In a way, this strange oblivion was comforting. All of his worries and woes gone, no fear, no pain, just nothing. Unfortunately for him, this velvet darkness ended quite suddenly as he felt nothing but scorching pain rack his body in unimaginable ways. Liquid magma filled his veins, and his mind started to tear apart as he lost all rational thought and could only soundlessly scream into the void, begging it for it all just to end. The riverbank, arg, was the demonic yell of the silver-haired boy as his body had spasms and convulsed violently. Eventually he stopped moving and just laid there in the cool mud, panting as the pain drained away and rational thought came back to him. Naruto stayed in that position for several minutes as he started to slightly move his limbs in order to regain the feel of using them. After half an hour of this he decided to risk trying to stand up. In a Herculean effort, Naruto succeeded in standing up. He looked around himself and saw that he was on riverbank surrounded by a thick grove of trees. He went quite a distance, kid. If it weren't for the fact you got snagged on a log which kept you afloat, you would have died. Hyuga. Don't yell, you idiot. I needed a way to talk to you without pulling you into your mind, so I established this little link. Just think your thoughts towards me. Hyuga. That's better. Now, before you start shooting off questions, let me explain what has happened. I put you in a death-like state for the past 3 days, so the restrictions on this seal could loosen enough for me to work my magic. And all that pain you felt was your body's reaction to all the changes it underwent. Did I at least get something out of all that suffering? Of course. Now keep your trap shut while I get into the details of what has become of you. I supercharged your regenerative abilities and senses, your natural affinities have been strengthened, and a few have even been added. Be careful with your strength too, your muscle mass is such that you'll become much stronger than any human has the right to be as you grow older. Now here's the strange part. Remember when I said your body was warping because of the corruptive powers of my soul without a chakra buffer? Naruto nodded slowly, though Kyuubi couldn't see it, he figured Naruto would, as a bit of fear crept into him. Well, one of the changes it caused I couldn't undo. But I was able to change it enough so it would benefit you. Your body now naturally produces a strange kind of metal that is a bit like your chakra made solid. Without my changes, this would have rather nasty side effects like intense pain and insanity. Now though, you can fully use this metal however you wish. You can even create it consciously and make it obey your whims. It'll take time to get fully used to this, so get ready to train. Questions. Am I still human? And what do I do now? Naruto asked with a sense of sadness at possibly proving the villagers right when it came to what manner of organism he was. Human? Maybe. Kid, I honestly don't know what the hell you are anymore. But that am I a monster? Bullshit won't matter if you're dead. Right now you need food and shelter. So find a cave or a hollowed out tree while I explain the fine art of hunting. Kyuubi said with a surprising amount of joy at the thought of hunting. Naruto obeyed and walked further into the woods, a sense of melancholy surrounding him as he idly wondered when he would ever see his friends again and whether they would accept what he had become for that matter. In the general area where Naruto was thrown into the river, Kushina was frantically pacing the area while several Inuzuka and Aburam trackers were looking for any trace of Naruto so they could do their jobs. Unfortunately they could not find any even after several hours of looking. And considering the swiftness and depth of the river, it was unlikely they would find Naruto as a corpse, much less alive. After having an impromptu debate as to who would be the one to break their findings to the obviously distraught mother, an Aburam male finally volunteered just to get this over with. Kushina-sama, have you found any trace of my Naruto-chan? She immediately asked. I'm afraid there is no way for us to track him. And in all likelihood, he is no longer among the living. I am sorry. The Aburam said with a subtle tone of sadness in his voice. The Aburam clan, while not exactly throwing its compound gates open for Naruto before, still respected and admired him for what he contained. They could sympathize with being outcasts for containing something others fervently disliked. No. No. You have to find something. Naruto-chan can't be gone. He just can't. Kushina said, her voice getting more hysterical as she broke down into sobs. The search ended with the sorrowful sounds of Kushina's tears. To her, it felt like a hole had opened in her heart. One that would never heal. 6 years later, Kuni, land of hot water. Naruto had spent the last 6 years learning various skills and becoming rather dangerous in his own right. He was now 14 years old and had recently created a fine chikudo for himself out of his self-produced chakra metal. It was roughly 3.5 feet long, without a guard, and the blade was completely silver in color. Its handle was wrapped in a fine dark gray silk that Naruto had managed to find a good price on. It had become his prized possession. He was currently in Kuni looking for anyone willing to offer him a job. After a few years of training under Kyuubi's watch, Naruto was told to go out and gain experience in combat in order to further his education. Now he hunted C and lower B-class ronin and was a favorite bounty hunter in the collection offices. He even took on any random job that paid well, which led to him making acquaintances with many people. As he walked through a rather small town in Kuni, he wondered on another recent addition he had managed. His left arm was now covered up to the elbow in his chakra metal, Hayden's arm from Dark Sector, when he first got the Technocyte virus. This was the fruit of his labor at finally figuring out how to create his chakra metal in such a way that it could become a second skin and still give him the protection he wanted. It amazed him how pliable his chakra metal was and the untold possibilities it presented, though at the moment he could only produce enough to cover some of his left arm. Losing himself in his thoughts, Naruto accidentally ran into someone. Oof. He groaned out as he fell on his ass. Getting up slowly, he looked at the person he ran into. It was an incredibly beautiful girl, skin as white as snow with dark hair that framed her face wonderfully and a pair of honey brown eyes that expressed a deep kindness. She had a slender figure and wore a light pink yukata that fit her air of innocence and kindness well. I'm sorry. I wasn't looking where I was going. Naruto said a bit nervously as he held his hand out to help her up. It had been a while since he had seen someone so pretty and he was in the middle of puberty. It's alright. I'm at fault too. The pretty girl said with a soft voice as she accepted his help to stand up. My name is Naruto, what about yours? Naruto said, it never hurt to be friendly after all. Well Naruto-san, my name is Haku. The now named Haku said cordially as she dusted herself off. She then started to walk away before turning around and saying it was nice meeting you Naruto-san. Before walking away. Well that led to nothing. Naruto said as a small frown found itself on his face. These past 6 years had been a bit lonely for Naruto since he had constantly traveled and only had a sarcastic mean-spirited fox to keep him company most of the time. He really wished he had at the least a traveling companion. Ha! You should be happy I even deigned to speak with you kid. The previously mentioned fox said as it had a brief chuckle at Naruto's expense. Naruto's frown grew as he sighed and started to walk further into the small town. After walking a few dozen feet he heard something that stopped him in his tracks. Several obvious low-lives were conspiratorially whispering to one another while uttering dark chuckles. Heh, I think I just found us some entertainment for tonight, boys. The biggest of the low-lives said as his cronies listened eagerly. Real innocent-looking thing, in a light pink yukata heading out of town. It would be rude not to introduce ourselves, he said with a disgusting grin stretching across his face. If there was one thing Naruto would never let slide, it was rape. Traveling for so long, and at such a young age, he had seen many things he wished would fade from memory and even had a few attempts on his own person. He made sure to fix the potential deviance problem with decency, with a healthy dose of death. Deciding to follow these bastards and get rid of them in a more private place, he discreetly tailed them as they walked off in the direction Haku went. In a secluded spot outside of town, Haku was calmly walking along a narrow road cutting through a serene forest before stopping and turning around as she heard the steps of a duo of thuggish-looking men coming behind her. "Hello, little lady. Don't mind us, we just want to make sure you get to wherever you're going safely," the leader thug said as he and one of his cronies advanced menacingly. As Haku was staring at the thugs and taking an involuntary step backwards, she bumped into a thug who had sneaked behind her while she was distracted. The thug quickly grabbed her arms as she started to struggle. Deciding that he had seen enough, the hidden Naruto unsheathed his blade and was about to step in when suddenly he felt killing intent far beyond what he had ever felt before. "You know, I heard you bastards were pigs, but damn. At least I now know why everyone wants you dead," said a deep gravelly voice that seemed to come from everywhere. Naruto was surprised that he wasn't able to find the source. Intrigued, he continued to watch. "Come out, you bastard. What are you, chicken?" One of the thugs yelled out in a fake show of bravado as he was thoroughly freaked out. Only silence ensued as each thug started to succumb to panic. The two thugs who were advancing on Haku were back to back looking for the source of the voice as the thug who had grabbed Haku let her go and was constantly moving around looking for the slightest disturbance in his surroundings. "You know, I have always loved the look on a smug bastard's face when he realizes he's about to be gutted like swine," the voice said again as the thugs became even more hysterical. In a blindingly fast burst of movement, Haku disappeared into the surrounding forest as a giant blade cut the thug who had previously held her in half diagonally. The one holding the giant sword was a tall, short-haired man with bandages wrapped around his face. "Hahaha. It's been too long since Kubikirabacho has had a drink. Thank you for your help in quenching that thirst," the tall man said before hefting the blade and placing it on his shoulder casually. "Now then, who's next?" he said as a hint of glee entered his voice. The two living thugs quickly started running away from the obviously dangerous man as a smile became visible from beneath the bandages wrapped around his lower face. In a single fluid movement, he reached the fleeing thugs and swung his giant blade in a graceful arc that cut both their legs off below the knees, effectively stopping them getting any further. "Who said you could leave? Please let us go. We have connections. We could give you anything you want. Just please don't kill us," the leader thug said as he tried to crawl away. "Our big boss is a gangster who controls this area. If you kill us he'll take you down," the other thug said as he too tried to crawl away. "Who do you think hired me to get rid of you idiots? A surprisingly high price for such easy marks. You must have really pissed him off," the tall man said as he slowly lifted the blade up his head. "Wait. No." Both thugs managed to yell out before having both their heads cut off in a single swing. A look of horror still on their faces. The swordsman quickly took out a scroll and sealed the severed heads into it before repeating the process with the first thug to die. Haku soon came out of the forest, a look of apathy on her face as she stared at the carnage. "Hey, kid. You mind coming out now? It's kinda creeping me out how you've just been watching this entire time," the swordsman idly said as he stood up from what he was doing and turned to stare directly at where Naruto was hidden. Deciding to test his luck, Naruto slowly revealed himself to the pair. "Huh, you're the kid who Haku ran into earlier. Well, what do you want?" "I wish for you to teach me in the arts of the shinobi," Naruto said humbly as he bowed his head. As he watched the swordsman earlier he had realized who he was, the infamous Zabuza Mamachi. Naruto had heard rumors about him and his skills in the shinobi arts from fellow bounty hunters and a few nin he ran into and gave a few ryo to get info on targets he should go for and those to avoid. "HMPH," was Zabuza's reply before rushing Naruto and swinging his massive blade downward in order to cleave him in twain. Naruto hastily lifted up his chakra metal-covered forearm and blocked the blow. Seeing his arm and the fact Naruto had the strength to block his attack made Zabuza rethink Naruto's request. Jumping backwards and sheathing his blade, Zabuza looked at Naruto with an "explain right the hell now" look. "Call it a Kekai Genkai. I can naturally produce metal and change it to how I want it to be. Like the second skin on my arm. Tough enough to block your blow, but thin enough not to slow me down or be obvious to others if I cover it with something." I won't go easy on you, kid. And I'll kill you if you even think about betraying me. Zabuza said after taking several moments to think before turning around and walking off. Well, aren't you just a bright ray of sunshine? Naruto said as he started to follow. Haku started to walk alongside him and gave him a smile while offering her hand for a handshake. Naruto happily accepted it and marveled at how soft her hand was. Looks like we'll be working together from now on. Hey, Haku-chan. Naruto-san, you do know that I am a boy. Haku said as he continued smiling at Naruto. Of course you are. Naruto sighed out and looked forward awkwardly. And continued to walk at a moderate pace, questioning the existence of a loving god. Hey kid. I fucking swear, if you start laughing I'm coming in there and ripping out your 9 tails. Are you fucking stupid? Use those advanced senses on Haku. I hate you. But I also want to thank you, Naruto responded after taking several moments using his advanced sense of smell to pick out scents wafting off Haku that could only come from a female. Keep your thanks. But why would she lie about being female? Fuck if I know. Ask her one day. Until then, treat her like a dude so she doesn't realize you know. This'll be hilarious if it works out how I hope it will. I may as well. I wonder what'll happen now. Naruto idly wondered as he heard the loud snores coming from Kyuubi. Lazy fucking fox, at least now Naruto had someone to talk to that wasn't a giant bastard of a fox. 2 years later, shore of Nami no Kuni. The past few years under Zabuza's tutelage had been great for Naruto. He now stood at an even 6 foot and was leanly muscled from constant brutal training. He had grown his hair out to reach his mid-back while he trimmed his bangs so they only reached jaw length. His looks had also matured a bit with his face becoming more angular, combined with his electric blue eyes, made Naruto incredibly handsome and popular wherever they went, much to Haku's secret chagrin. He wore his shakudo across his back on his right side and was garbed in all black standard Anbu attire. Though the vest, arm guards and shin guards were all a dull silver with an insignia of a fox standing above a lotus, Naruto's personal symbol, prominently displayed on each. His left arm though, was completely wrapped in bandages, including the entirety of the shoulder. But Zabuza's brutal but effective training, Naruto's mastery of his chakra and Suiton manipulation, turned out he had Futon, Suiton and Raiten chakra natures, but Zabuza was only really skilled in Suiton, was through the roof. He now had the entirety of his left arm and shoulder constantly under a shell of his chakra metal, and had even managed to find a way to create a special glaive that would spring from the chakra metal near instantly when needed, Hayden's arm when he has all his powers. But Zabuza's knowledge, Naruto fully explored the possibilities of his chakra metal and now had several tricks up his sleeve for when the situation warranted it. Haku herself was garbed in a fake Hunter Nin outfit, canon outfit, with a mask to complete the look. Although her chest had gone from a modest B to a much larger C cup. This was negated a bit by the fact that she continued her charade of being a boy to Naruto, so she would always bind her chest. Frankly, it amused Naruto how much she tried to hide her gender and the fact she thought she succeeded. The reason that both of them were on the shore of Nami no Kuni was because they had just received a message from Zabuza about a new job, having taken a separate job beforehand while Zabuza met with an acquaintance. Currently, they were waiting for him to appear and tell them about what they were going to do. Why are you so angry with me, Haku? I'm not angry. Haku said with a cute pout while looking away from Naruto. Of course not. You've been in a bad mood ever since we parted with Amaru-chan. Naruto said. He and Haku had taken a job where they dealt with an invading force of Sora no Kuni Nin, Land of Sky, for a prominent town in Hai no Kuni that couldn't get Konoha Nin in time. In the process, Naruto met, befriended and saved the life of a girl named Amaru. For several days the three of them had traveled together and when they parted Amaru kissed Naruto on the cheek and told him that if he ever got hurt to find her and she would take care of him. Haku had refused to speak to Naruto for the rest of that day. HMPH, I don't know what she has to do with anything. Haku said and stayed quiet. Naruto merely chuckled as they both waited for roughly half an hour before Zabuza finally showed up. Hey, what's wrong with you, Haku? Zabuza started before looking at the angrily pouting Haku and losing what he was about to say. Haku merely gave him a look telling him to keep his mouth shut and get on with job details. Knowing Haku's temperament best when she was angry, Zabuza obliged. Well, we have a really easy job this time. There's this bridge builder named Tazuna. Konoha, Namika's clan compound 7 AM. The past 8 years had been good to Naruto appearance-wise. She went from being rather short and even a little pudgy in her childhood days, admittedly in an adorable way, to blossoming into a fine woman. She stood at a nice 5'7" and her chest had grown to a nice mid-sized C-cup. Her waist-length red hair was usually styled into a ponytail that went well with her often tomboyish attitude and mannerisms. Her regular attire being a pair of brown shorts that hugged her round behind quite nicely and a red t-shirt with the Uzumaki crest on the back. Naruto was readying herself for the day as she thought about her life as a kunoichi. She had graduated from the academy at the top of her class, narrowly beating Sasuke Uchiha for the top spot roughly a month ago. Ever since then she had been doing idiotic D-rank missions with her teammates, Sakura Haruno and Kiba Inuzuka, who needed to stop hitting on her, or she would break both of his legs, under her sensei Kakashi Haddock, who was beyond pleased to be mentoring the child of his own sensei, though he secretly mourned never being able to do so for Naruto. As she continued to muse over her ongoing days, her thoughts inevitably went to where they always did. Naruto. It had been 8 years since he was last seen, and at times she felt herself lose hope on ever seeing him again. It was for him that she trained so hard, so that one day she could go out into the world and find her beloved brother, who never got the love and care he should have. Looking back on her childhood, she felt ashamed of herself for never truly noticing her brother's plight. He had always cared for her. When she cried he was the first to comfort her, when she was scared he would stay by her side, and yet when it was her turn to be there for him she failed miserably, and now he was gone. No. Not gone. He is out there, waiting for me to find him and bring him home. And I will, she thought to herself as she felt her determination come back to her. As she finished getting ready she left her room and paid a visit to the kitchen where her mother Kushina was waiting for her with breakfast. Excited for another day of being a kunoichi, Naruko-chan? Kushina asked with a mischievous smile, knowing that her daughter was currently going through the terrible times known as D-ranks. Of course. Because I love weeding gardens, catching tora and picking up dog poop. Naruko responded with a deadpan expression and a snarky tone in her voice. Good. I'd hate to think you did something you disliked all day. I'll make sure to mention to your dad how much you like those three in particular tebbing. Kushina replied, winning this little battle of wits as Naruko looked at her in horror. Over the past 8 years Kushina had aged rather well, though there were a few stress lines here and there on her face due to the incident 8 years ago. Losing Naruto was something she was still grieving from, and truthfully she never forgave herself for how everything went. Her only salvation from the depths of despair being her husband Minato and her daughter Naruko. She had even tearfully begged Hitomi to be her friend again, as she realized how badly she had failed Naruto. Hitomi agreed, after seeing just how badly Kushina regretted her actions, not to mention noticing that Kushina's guilt was starting to ruin her health. Like her daughter, Kushina also held out hope that one day she would see Naruto again. You win this round, mom. Naruko finally conceded and ate her breakfast as Kushina started to smirk in victory. She really did love these fun little conversations with her daughter. After eating her breakfast and making idle conversation with her mother on the usual things, Naruko finally left her home and headed off towards the training ground. Streets of Konoha. Naruko was calmly walking along, responding with icy politeness to the many villagers who greeted her. Ever since Naruto had gone missing she found that a lot of the love she once had for Konoha had gone with him, and the villagers were quite aware of this, but, unfortunately, still tried to get back into the good graces of the Yondame's daughter. When Naruto first went missing, many villagers who had always hated him had come around and tried to apologize. Naruko promptly told them that she wasn't the one to apologize to. Since then she kept an air of icy politeness to most people. As she was walking she spotted her best friend, Hinata Hyuga. The two had bonded after Naruto's disappearance. Naruko was desperate for any kind of connection to her brother and had found out he was often at the Hyuga compound, so she found the first Hyuga she could and asked them about Naruto. This Hyuga was Hinata, who was a wreck at the time from losing her dear friend. After an initially awkward meeting, the two got along by telling each other their favorite times with the silver-haired boy. Naruko could tell though that even after all this time Hinata was still madly in love with Naruto. So Naruko decided to hook the two up when she finally located him and brought him home. No one could ever say that Naruko was a pessimist. Nada-chan. Naruko yelled loudly as she ran at Hinata and pulled her into a bone-breaking hug. Yep. Was Hinata's initial response to being called out and suddenly being hugged. After a few moments Naruko let her go and Hinata was able to breathe so she could respond. Good morning Naruko-chan. She said happily to the close friend who had helped her with her stutter and grief. You going off to train too? Naruko asked happily. Yes. Although I'm a bit early so I can take my time getting there. Really? Sweet. Kakashi-sensei is always late so I have plenty of time to kill. Wanna walk together? Sure. Hinata responded as the two walked along and happily conversed. Several hours later, training ground 7. Naruko was currently practicing her Fuinjutsu as she waited for her sensei to show up. Off to the side, Kiba was, thankfully, asleep, along with his nin dog Akamaru and Sakura, if Naruko's hunch was correct, was daydreaming about Sasuke. As Naruko put the finishing touches on her seal, an explosive seal that would also launch projectiles of her choice, a poof of smoke, announced the arrival of her sensei. Yo. Sorry I'm late but I was suddenly requested by the Hokage to undergo a secret S-class mission where you single-handedly defeated an army and won a collection of Icha first editions. Naruko said in parody of her sensei's lame excuses. No, actually. But I like that excuse and will use it from now on. Kakashi said as he pulled out a small notepad and wrote down the excuse as Naruto felt like smashing her head against a nearby tree. Kakashi then went on to wake up Kiba with a small Suiton jutsu while Sakura and Naruto laughed. What's happened? Kiba said as he frantically started to look around himself after the rude awakening. Good morning Kiba. Please sit down so we can start our day. Kakashi said with an eye smile and a subtle undertone of authority that made Kiba's instincts go haywire and scream obey the alpha. Thank you. Now, you three have been exemplary in your completion of D ranks, so I think it is only fair that we try out a C rank. Come on. Kakashi finished as his body flickered away as his students got up and madly rushed towards the Hokage tower to get their mission. Kakashi-sensei may get bored if they took too long and wander off after all. 20 minutes later, Team 7 was now standing in front of the Yondaime Hokage and Naruto's father, Minato Namikaze. He, like Kushina, had aged very well and was still considered one of the most handsome men in the village. One thing that had changed with Minato was his idealism. Before Naruto's disappearance and the subsequent revelations of how his once beloved village treated his son, he believed in the greatness of Konoha and its will of fire. Now he was much colder to the villagers, something said villagers were quite sad about considering their love for the Yondaime in general, and wondered how the late Tsurutobi dealt with these people for so long. Hell, every time Danzo opened his mouth he had to restrain himself from shoving a Rasengan through his face. Danzo was rather vocal on turning Minato's beloved daughter into a weapon when Naruto disappeared. Naruto, will I ever get to apologize to you? Minato thought and had to snap himself back to the present. He would brood once again on his failings later. Right now he had a village to run. So Kakashi, you want to C rank? Yes, Hokage-sama. I feel that my team is sufficiently ready for one. Well, lucky for you I have such a mission. It's a simple escort mission. Minato said as he smiled and then called in a man named Tazuna. Tazuna was a rotund man who had seen better days and had started drinking, even though it wasn't even midday. So these are the brats I got, eh? Meh, you'll do for now. I ain't changing your diapers though. He said as Team 7 tried to stay professional and not say some very rude things to him. Kakashi and Minato merely chuckled, oh the joys of working with terrible clients. A harsh lesson that every shinobi learns all too well. Alright Team 7, pack for a month and meet at the West Gate in half an hour. Go. Kakashi said as his team left as fast as they could in both excitement and in trying not to attack Tazuna. If only Naruto knew what this mission would bring. Shore of Nami no Kuni. So, let me get this straight. We are being paid about several ass loads of cash to finish off a civilian bridge builder. What's the catch? Naruto said in disbelief and suspicion. Well, the bridge builder sort of went to Konoha to get some shinobi bodyguards. But I've been assured that with the amount of money that he has, he will only be able to get maybe a single genin team, so 1 jonin and 3 genin. Easy pickings for a quick, and may I remind you, massive payday. Zabuza said with arrogance lacing his tone. Right. Isn't Gato, in your own words, an untrustworthy, greedy sack of shit made animate by some fiendish power? Why would we work for him when even you, Mr. Sunshine, think he is an untrustworthy pile of excrement? Are you questioning my judgment? Brat Zabuza said while getting in Naruto's face. Yeah. Why wouldn't I, old man? Naruto responded and did not back down. Zabuza-sama, Naruto Haku tried to intervene before getting cut off by Zabuza. Old man. I'll teach your smartass some manners. Zabuza said as he started to grab his Kubikirabacho. Bring it Zabuza-sensei. I've always got the time to kick your ass. Naruto yelled back as he too grabbed his Shakudo. Before they could get further into their argument, Haku created a pair of Eye Senbon and threw both with deadly accuracy. One hit Zabuza and sunk deep into his butt cheek as he gave a high-pitched yell. The other bounced off of Naruto who, predicting Haku intervening, covered his lower half in a thin layer of his chakra metal. Ha! Naruto yelled triumphantly before Haku fixed his attitude with a lightning-quick and chakra-enhanced punch to his solar plexus that immediately sent him to the ground in pain. This little display of violence became incredibly common among the trio, as it turned out that both Naruto and Zabuza were too stubborn to ever back down to one another. At first, Haku tried to meekly calm them down with gentle words. After several dozen failures of that, she lost her composure and used much harsher words. Well, this worked for a while. The effect of the normally kind and meek Haku swearing ran thin. So after that stopped working, and the two accidentally destroying several towns and a small forest in their fights, Haku had enough and would strike both of them when they got too into their arguments. Are you two quite finished? Zabuza-sama, Naruto? Haku asked with an annoyed tone in her voice. It was rather frustrating when the people you worked with fought like children. All the damned time. Erg. Yes. Damn Haku, you didn't have to be so violent. The brat and I were just having a normal conversation. Zabuza said as he threw away the Eye Senbon that he plucked out of his butt cheek. Haku knew where to hit with her senbon to make things hurt. Zabuza was simultaneously proud of how great her skills were and angry with himself for making sure she had those skills. Yeah, Haku. Zabuza-sensei and I were just having a friendly disagreement. Naruto wheezed out as he gingerly stood up. Right, a friendly disagreement now, Zabuza-sama. I do believe Naruto's suspicions of Geto have some merit. I think one of us should investigate him while the other goes on to keep tabs on our target until we know for sure this will not backfire on us. Haku started off with sarcasm lacing her tone, something that had rubbed off on her thanks to Naruto, before switching to a business-like tone. I guess we'll do things your way for now, Haku. Brat, sneak into Geto's mansion tonight and dig up whatever you can to make sure we get out of this both alive and on top. Haku, you and I will be doing the reconnaissance on the Konoha team. We will go off and observe them tomorrow morning, depending on whether Naruto finds anything. We have plenty of time since the Konoha ninja will be traveling at a civilian's pace, considering both who they're guarding and the fact that it should be a genin team. Zabuza said with a commanding tone. Naruto and Haku both nodded before they all headed to the hideout they had received from Geto. At night, in the forest surrounding Geto's hideout, using the directions provided by Zabuza, Naruto was now just out of sight of Geto's hideout. As he double-checked to make sure he had his equipment ready, he wondered on how his former sister Naruko was doing. While he didn't exactly care for his former parents, his feelings had turned from boiling anger to apathy and a need to forget them, he still deeply cared for Naruko. She was always kind and loving towards him, to the point where as he remembered his childhood, he wondered on whether she was developing a brother complex, knowing his disappearance probably hurt her quite a bit, made his chest ache, and created a longing to at the very least give her some closure. You know better than to try and think on useless things like the past. Maybe one day you can meet her again, but right now you have a job to do. You can brood after you've made sure you have your meal ticket secured. Kyuubi said with an almost concerned tone. Well, Kyuubi would never admit it, Naruto was probably the closest thing to a friend the giant chakra beast probably ever had. Or will have considering Kyuubi's penchant for causing death and destruction for the hell of it. Yeah, you're right. I'd hate to be some punk-ass emo kid who's blinded by the past. Might as well get this show on the road, Naruto said as he activated one of the techniques he had created using his chakra metal. Shift. Shift was an interesting ability. By releasing a uniform flow of chakra from his metal-encased arm, Naruto could bend light around himself and anyone or anything he was holding in order to become nearly invisible, and because of the mass amounts of chakra put into the atmosphere, sensory ninja would not be able to pinpoint his position. Instead, their sensor abilities would only pick up a wide cloud of interference in his general area. The downsides of this technique being the obvious fact that it ate through chakra at astounding rates, so prolonged usage was not a good idea, and the fact that he couldn't use most jutsu without disrupting the technique. Meaning he was for the most part limited to purely physical attacks. There was also the trouble with anyone with a sensitive enough nose, but considering those were incredibly few and far between, this little problem was often moot. As he felt the shift do its magic, Naruto started moving towards Geto's lair. Easily bypassing guards as he damn near strolled right in. Knowing he didn't have time to sightsee, Naruto moved quickly and efficiently towards Geto's room office. After a few minutes he found himself in front of a huge mahogany door that was rather gaudily covered in dragons and other mythological creatures, seemingly without rhyme or reason. Even the ornate doorknob was gilded, making the entire thing an even bigger exercise in bad taste. As he was wondering on how to get in with the least amount of noise, the door opened as Geto himself walked out. Stupid fucking contractor. Not building a bathroom in the master fucking bedroom. Too bad he's dead, door-eyed Geto mumbled as he sleepily walked away, Naruto only being able to catch a small bit of his threatening rant as he took the opportunity to slip into the momentarily open room. Well, that was convenient. Naruto said as he finished a quick survey of the room to make sure he was alone. Figuring that he dropped the shift and quickly went to Geto's desk and started rifling through his papers. Geto has some seriously massive hooker bills, Naruto observed as he found numerous memos on payments to houses of ill repute. Naruto knew quite a bit about brothels because of several occasions where he and his comrades were contracted to protect a brothel or get payment from a non-paying, and often incredibly wealthy, client. Although Zabuza always had a great time on these missions, Haku seemed to be in a perpetual foul mood during them and would make sure Naruto was as far from any temptation as possible. Naruto could never figure out why. I knew making Naruto see Haku as a dude would pay off. It's so fucking funny seeing these things go over his head, Kyuubi happily thought as Naruto continued his looking through documents. Naruto suddenly entered shift again as he launched himself into a corner of the room and held himself aloft with chakra as the door opened and Geto entered while talking with someone. Calm down. I know the amount of money I'm paying those rogue nin is ludicrous. Which is why I won't be paying them at all. See, I figure if I time it right I can get those damn ninja to kill each other and then swoop in and finish off the survivors with all those new recruits I hired. So stop bothering me with all this bullshit about expenses or I'll show you why I'm the boss. Gato angrily finished as the person he was talking to, Naruto assumed it to be his accountant, meekly nodded and left. Gato then went back to his bed and almost immediately went to sleep. Well, looks like your client there is hiding something from you. I say you got him. Wait. Use your chakra metal to fill his lungs so he painfully suffocates. That would be hilarious. Kyuubi eagerly said as more and more sadistic ways of murdering of Gato were suggested. Shut it. I have a better idea, Naruto thought as he deactivated his shift once again and slowly approached Gato. He then took out several senbon that were covered in a powerful and fast-acting paralyzing agent, courtesy of Haku, and jammed them into the sleeping Gato's form, using his incredible speed to jam them into Gato's groin, gut and chest respectively. Ack was the only sound Gato made as he woke up violently, only to find he was paralyzed. Unable to move his body, except for his eyes, or speak, he frantically looked everywhere as Naruto towered over him. Well boss, it seems you and I have some details to iron out in our contract. If you don't mind I'd feel more comfortable discussing this elsewhere. What's that? You don't mind? Well then, let us proceed. Naruto said with a tinge of joy at seeing the terror in Gato's eyes as he roughly grabbed him and readied his escape. A few hours later, Zabuza's hideout, ready to move out. Zabuza said as he himself was checking over his kubikirabacho as Naruto and Haku both grimly nodded. When Naruto arrived back at the hideout with his guest, he quickly explained what he had heard. Zabuza was not amused and, after having Haku administer an antidote, proceeded to torture all the information he could out of the arrogant midget and taking quite a bit of joy from it. Gato broke rather quickly and was then killed with Zabuza delivering the killing blow with kubikirabacho. After that a plan was formed to storm Gato's hideout, steal everything they could, and eliminate the thugs there. Not the most elaborate of plans, but it suited everyone fine. Alright, let's go. Zabuza said as Naruto and Haku grimly nodded and left. In front of Gato's hideout, the previous night had been a whopping success, almost boringly so for Zabuza and Naruto. Without anyone to direct them, the sleeping-turned-panicking thugs were dispatched with ruthless efficiency by Zabuza and Naruto. In fact, they had not even needed to use jutsu with how well it went. After that boring slaughter, the trio regrouped as Haku had been given the duty of stealing everything she could from inside the mansion. She had also made sure to rig the place to blow as a final insult to Gato for trying to double-cross them, this having been suggested by Naruto with Zabuza thoroughly agreeing with him. Well, that was boring. Those stupid shits didn't even put up a fight. Zabuza said with a surprisingly morose tone. That aside, Zabuza-sama, I managed to get everything needed from the mansion. Shall we leave? Haku said as she counted the sealing scrolls she brought with her to make sure she had everything. Yeah. Let's blow this joint. Zabuza said as he smiled to himself. Naruto merely gave him a really. Look at the use of the pun. As they left, a massive explosion echoed out the moment they were a safe distance away. A week later, Zabuza's hideout. It had been a week since the successful raid on Gato's mansion, and Zabuza had called both Naruto and Haku for a meeting, since they had finally finished with giving back the citizens of Nami their wealth, after taking their much-deserved share from it of course. The decision to return the wealth had been made a bit complicated, since no one had bothered to take the records of what belonged to whom from Gato's mansion, so it had become a long tedious process. Though even Zabuza would admit to having enjoyed being able to help the beleaguered people of Nami. Now the trio was sitting around a table found in the living room of their hideout. So what's on your mind, Zabuza-sensei? Naruto asked with a hidden tone of concern. He felt that Zabuza had been acting a bit strange lately. The normally brash and loud sadist would often get quiet and seem to be contemplating something rather deeply, and more often than not, he would venture off alone without saying anything. The last part being odd because Zabuza had made it a habit to always tell them where he went and for how long in case anything were to happen. The life of a rogue nin being even more dangerous than that of a nin with a village backing them. It's time I left this place. Zabuza replied simply. Shall I start packing then, Zabuza-sama? Haku asked as she started thinking on where she had left the extra sealing scrolls she had gotten for just this occasion. You've misunderstood. I'm leaving. You two are not coming with me anymore. What? Haku said as she broke the tense silence that had fallen. Her voice coming out as a broken tone that was underscored by the rapidly increasing panic that was forming in her eyes and a visible trembling appearing on her slender frame. I've come to a decision this past week. Now, shut up and listen closely because I won't repeat myself. Zabuza started as he stood up and looked away from the confused Naruto and panicking Haku. I'm going back to Kiri and using my share of the take to help my cousin Mei with the Kiri rebellion. Naruto, Zabuza solemnly stated as he turned around and stared at the now even more confused Naruto with an intensity that made Naruto realize how serious this was. I'll be leaving Haku in your care. She has been like a daughter to me ever since I found her all those years ago. I didn't want her to be bothered by scum, so I had her pretend to be a man for years. But I feel you'll be able to care for her so that will no longer be necessary. I want you both to go out and make your own way in this world, since I know you both are ready." In the wake of Zabuza's unexpected words a surreal silence fell. This lasted until Haku finally had enough and bolted from her seat and clung to Zabuza as tears quickly fell from her face. Zabuza looked awkward for a moment before returning the hug with one arm and softly patting her head with the other. Naruto was able to discern a small but genuine fatherly smile on Zabuza's bandaged face as this continued for several minutes. "If you ever need help, send word to Kiri. If I'm still alive I'll put in a good word with whoever the new Mizuki will be. Naruto." Zabuza started off in a caring, for him, tone before his tone shifted completely as he yelled at Naruto. "Why yes," Naruto replied. "I will probably never say this again, but I am proud to have had you as my student. I would have been glad to have called you my comrade had you been in the Seven Swordsmen of the Mist." This was probably the highest compliment Zabuza could ever give as he held his former group above damn near anything in his mind. "Zabuza sensei," Naruto said, momentarily speechless as he found a feeling of warmth spreading in his chest. Truthfully, Naruto had viewed Zabuza as a strange amalgamation of teacher, older brother and father, so these words meant more to him than anything his own former father had ever said. That said, "If I ever hear of you mistreating my little girl I will hunt you down, cut off your limbs, feed them to you then gut you in order to extract your limbs and feed them to you again. We clear, brat?" Zabuza said as the warm feeling in Naruto's chest was replaced by a foreboding sense of dread as he realized that this was a completely serious threat as opposed to the normal joke ones they shared. Naruto nodded quickly since he had no clue how to deal with this strange emotional Zabuza. "Haku. Live long and make sure to send me pictures of any future metal and ice users. And don't take any shit from the brat. Visit too when you can." Zabuza said as he extracted himself from the teary embrace of Haku and looked away, embarrassed from the emotional words he had to say at this moment. "I will, father." Haku said with a gentle smile on her face as she wiped away the tears. "Good. Then farewell, daughter. And you too, brat. Remember what I said," Zabuza said as he gave a final hug to Haku, shook Naruto's hand rather forcefully, and then grabbed a previously readied bag from the corner of the room. As he left the room he spared a final glance towards the two and briefly flashed a poignant smile that found itself duplicated on the faces of the two occupants left. "I'm going to miss that guy," Naruto said quietly as he found that he was now alone with Haku. "As will I, Naruto-sama." "Yeah. So and wait. Naruto-sama." Naruto started off before becoming confused. "Yes. Naruto-sama." Haku replied with a smile and a tinge of red coloring her face. "Why the sama?" "Because Naruto-sama, I mean father left me in your care." Haku said as her face grew redder and she looked away to hide it. "And? Of course you're in my care. We are comrades after all. I'd naturally assume you would be watching my back." Naruto said as Kyuubi was desperately trying to stifle the giant outburst of laughter, threatening to alert Naruto of his startling denseness. Haku instantly had a vein start throbbing on her forehead as she tried to contain her anger, only to fail and give Naruto a chakra-enhanced punch on his unarmored right arm as she left while muttering under her breath, something that in Naruto's pain and surprise, he did not pick up. "Stupid Naruto-sama, not understanding a maiden's heart and still thinking of me as a guy. Oh, what was that for?" Naruto said as he rubbed his arm. "Ahahahaha. You're so fucking stupid. Oh, it's beautiful." Kyuubi finally yelled out as it proved too difficult to keep quiet. Naruto only found his confusion growing as the echoes of Kyuubi's laughter continued on in his mind. The next day, shore of Nami no Kuni, Naruto and Haku were currently readying a boat they had been given as a parting gift from the incredibly thankful people of Nami, the girls of the village, wanting to give Naruto something a little extra, but Haku had made sure to put a stop to that. Naruto and Haku had agreed upon going to Hyuga to enjoy a short vacation in their famed hot springs before going to meet a contact in order to find some easy work. Truthfully, with the amount of money they had gotten from their share of Gato's fortune, they could just as easily settle down comfortably somewhere quiet, a fact that Haku was trying to find a good opportunity to bring up. "I swear to Kami. I will beat some manners into your pea-sized brain," was suddenly heard as a boat came into view. Both Haku and Naruto stiffened as they realized they had forgotten something incredibly important. There was a Konoha team that was supposed to show up. And if those chakra signatures were right then this would be them. "Oh, fuck. Haku." Naruto uttered as he quickly grabbed Haku and entered shift. A few moments later a boat landed with a thud as all of its occupants except one got off. "Sorry about this, Tazuna, but since Gato's gone I got a ton of fishing to catch up on," the boatman said as he started to leave. "No, don't worry about it. I'm just happy that damned midget is gone. Thanks for the news, my friend," the now named Tazuna jubilantly said as he donned a smile that was filled with only the utmost joy. It's too bad we didn't get to do anything though. A boy with short brown hair, a large dog and a pair of facial markings moaned out. Don't be stupid, Kiba. What if we had to deal with an A-class nin or higher? We'd be screwed if Kakashi-sensei were to be taken out of the fight, even if it's only momentarily. A pink-haired girl with a flat chest said. Sakura's right. This mission could have gone a lot worse. In the shinobi world, you won't often get breaks like this. So enjoy it, Kiba. The tallest member of the group, a man with silver gravity-defying hair and an open book said. In that instant, Naruto finally realized who he was. The Kakashi Haddock. His former father's only surviving pupil. And probably the worst person to come across in this situation. Wait, if Kakashi is here, then does that mean? Naruto thought as felt a lump grow in his throat. He scanned the small group of people, and suddenly his eyes landed on a slender redeed with unmistakable features. Naruko was here and she was only a short distance away. Well, we may as well get a move, Kiba. Are you trying to get my scent again, you damned pervert? Naruko started off with a bored tone before becoming angry as she saw Kiba intensely sniffing the air. It had been no secret to anyone that Kiba had a thing for Naruko, something she had on numerous occasions had to deal with, but the problem was that it was more of a lust-based attraction, and Kiba was a massive pervert. Calm down. We aren't alone. Kiba said in a rare moment of seriousness. Well, Kiba was a perverted jerk most of the time, his skills in tracking had never been questioned. Especially when it came to his incredibly sensitive, even for an Inuzuka, nose. Near that boat. Oddly though, one of the scents is like yours, Naruko, but not the client. Kakashi quickly said as he took out a kunai with an explosive note attached and threw it at the boat. Naruto borrowed a senbon from Haku and threw it at the incoming kunai, deflecting it and making the explosion go off in midair. Trying to use the ensuing chaos as a distraction, Naruto bolted towards the forest before having to jump away as several more explosive note-laden kunai landed all around him. Deciding he would rather keep himself and Haku alive, Naruto deactivated Shift and instead used a second one of his chakra metal abilities, Shield. Shield was a straightforward ability, in fact it was more like the logical extension of Shift than anything. It was when Naruto released a wave of chakra from his chakra metal in a given direction, in this case all around himself and Haku, that formed a shield. Due to the strange qualities of his chakra metal, this shield both absorbed, like right now with the concussive force from the explosion, and repelled attacks. In fact, with proper aim, timing and luck, it could even send back an attack at an enemy. But like Shift, it ate chakra at rates that would be foolish to keep up for long. Well shit. Looks like we've been found out. Naruto said as he deactivated his shield and released Haku from the bridal carry he had her in as he tried to escape. Now, if you don't mind, we'd like to leave. Naruto said in what he hoped was a placating tone as he tried to hide his face by looking away. It couldn't be Naruto. Is that you? Naruko uttered as she had caught a glimpse of whisker marks on the tall silver-haired man. It's been a while, eh Naruko? Naruto said as he realized he had been discovered. He then looked Naruko directly in the eyes as he knew that this would be an interesting conversation. Shore of Nami no Kuni. The silence thick with tension had fallen upon everyone as Naruto and Naruko looked at one another. One with disbelief and hope, the other with apprehension and worry. But it would be someone else to break the stare off. What the hell is going on? Kiba eloquently said as he figured it would be best if someone started explaining things. I am so happy to see you again, Naruto. I thought I had lost you, Naruko said as the corners of her eyes filled with tears and she started to take steps towards Naruto and Haku. Mom and Dad will be so happy. We can be a family again. Naruko said as a brilliant smile bloomed on her face as she started to reach out towards Naruto. No. There never was a family with your parents that included me. I'm sorry, Naruko. What you want will never exist. I won't be going back with you. Naruto said in a sorrowful tone as he could see Naruko's heart breaking before him. It hurt him to do this, but she needed to know. Or at least it was what Naruto said to himself. What? Why would you say that? You're my brother. You belong back home with me. With Mom and Dad. Naruko said as her tone started to get hysterical. This long-awaited meeting was not going the way she had always dreamed it did. That was never my home. We both know that, Naruko. Naruto said as a bit of anger flashed in his voice before he was able to calm down. While the two former siblings were speaking, Haku was keeping a close eye on Kakashi who had removed his headband and looked like he was getting ready for a fight. Suddenly, Haku grabbed Naruto and jumped out of the way as a second Kakashi burst from the ground where the two had previously been. It seemed he had snuck a clone underground during the previous distraction of explosions. Naruto, please come quietly. I will use force to bring you back if necessary. Please, I don't want to hurt you. Kakashi said with genuine concern in his voice as Naruto looked angrily back at him. Kakashi-sensei. What the fuck was that? Naruto angrily yelled. I'm sorry, Naruto, but it's standing orders from your father. If Naruto is ever spotted, every available shinobi is to capture him at all costs. Kakashi said with a regretful tone on the last part. While speaking he had covertly started to use hand signals to tell Sakura to retreat with Tazuna and Kiba to go for Haku. But Naruto tried to argue. Naruto. You are a shinobi of Konohagakure no Sado. Part of the job will be doing things you don't like. Kakashi said as he looked at her with the most serious expression Naruto had ever seen on him. Naruto slowly nodded as a few tears leaked from the corners of her eyes. She quickly wiped them away as she hardened her heart for what she was about to do. While this meeting had not gone how she had hoped, it still gave her the opportunity to bring back her brother. An opportunity she would not waste. I hope you realize I won't be making this easy. Naruto said as he unsheathed his shakudo and took a stance taught to him by Zabuza. Haku herself had already created a set of eye senbon for immediate use as she too took a battle stance. Several moments of tense silence followed as both sides stared at one another, neither wanting to make the first move. Deciding that he had enough of waiting, Kiba and Akamaru started things off by launching themselves at Haku, who had used the sudden movement to throw a senbon that pierced the so far unmoving clone's throat. Realizing that was the cue to retreat, Sakura grabbed Tazuna and fled to a distance that she deemed would be safe, as Kakashi and Naruto both found themselves dodging the incredibly quick slashes of Naruto. Haku and Kiba. You're a pretty one. But I'm still going to beat your ass. And after I do, Naruto will finally give in to my charms. Kiba said with arrogance lacing his tone as he and Akamaru landed from their failed attack. Haku merely looked at them with disinterest as she realized she needed to end this quickly. What? Too scared to talk back. This'll be too easy, Kiba started to say before being interrupted by several senbon sent his way. He dodged to one side while Akamaru dodged to the other. Before Kiba could launch a counterattack, a pair of what seemed to be ice mirrors appeared, one where Haku had been and the other appearing behind Kiba. You talk too much. Haku uttered before stabbing a senbon into Kiba's neck that sent him into a death-like state. As Kiba crumpled to the ground, Akamaru uttered a ferocious howl filled with grief at his partner's supposed death. Filled with rage, Akamaru immediately launched himself at the awaiting Haku. With blinding speed that was born from countless bars and years of practice, Haku launched several senbon at the currently mid-air Akamaru, each hitting with deadly accuracy and digging deep into his muscles. As Akamaru drew close, he realized he could no longer move his limbs. Before being able to think further on that little problem, Akamaru was given a powerful roundhouse kick that left him on his back a dozen feet away. Fortunately, he landed in such a way that the senbon did not dig deeper into his flesh and avoided becoming fatal. Satisfied with her work, Haku launched herself at Naruto. With Naruto and Kakashi. Same time, Naruto had exploded into action the moment Kiba had attacked Haku. Knowing Haku would be able to handle herself, Naruto quickly closed the distance between himself and the truly dangerous members of this Jonin cell, Kakashi and Naruto. Using quick and wide slashes in order to force the duo to move in order to dodge, Naruto managed to make sure that he had their attention. While he wouldn't kill them, a bit of a beatdown in order to ensure his and Haku's escape was certainly needed. Naruto, please stop this and just surrender. Kakashi said after avoiding another near hit. While it was obvious Naruto wasn't trying to kill them, the mastery of his attacks was still readily seen. Please Oni-chan. Just stop this. Just come back to Konoha. Naruto cried out as she too continued to dodge. I'll be damned if I go back to that village willingly. Naruto shouted out as he, with a sudden burst of speed, caught Kakashi off guard with a brutal punch to the face that sent the copycat nin flying backwards for a few yards before he was able to catch himself. Shocked by this display of speed, Naruto watched speechlessly as Naruto and Kakashi then engaged in a quick ninjutsu match, Naruto with his shakudo and Kakashi with a pair of kunai. As Naruto watched the incredible scene, she was completely blind to the rapidly approaching Haku who had just defeated Kiba. Naruto then had the displeasure of being hit in the face by a chakra-enhanced right hook from Haku that, like her sensei, sent her flying. Naruto? Kakashi yelled as he saw Naruto get blindsided. Before he could go help, he had to block a powerful slash from Naruto that made the bones in his arms ache. If it weren't for the fact that Kakashi had been fortifying his kunais with chakra, he was sure that the Chikudo would have cut through using brute force alone. It's not wise to lose focus. Naruto stated as he delivered a powerful kick to Kakashi's midsection. Although Naruto's kick only broke a log Kakashi had substituted with. Naruto then saw Kakashi in the corner of his eye running towards Haku. Deciding to try something new, Naruto created half a dozen water clones that followed him as he jumped towards Kakashi, who was now attacking and mainly dodging Haku. You take Naruto. Naruto yelled as he and his clones attacked Kakashi with perfect synchronization. As Naruto kept Kakashi at bay with his clones, Haku approached the now recovered Naruto. You bitch. Are you the one who poisoned my Oni-chan's mind? Naruto yelled as she grasped at straws in order to rationalize Naruto's unwillingness to be a family again. I would hold back on the name calling if I were you. Haku spat out with particular acidity on the word Naruto had shared his history and his being a Jinchuriki with both her and Zabuza. And honestly, Haku was disgusted by how Naruto's supposed family acted. Fuck you. Naruto roared out as she launched herself at Haku, a red hue entering Naruto's eyes as her canines lengthened at Tad. Naruto started to throw sloppy hooks and straights at Haku, who easily avoided each and would retaliate with her own blow, but they seemed to be doing nothing. This continued for several minutes before Haku had had enough and, after doing a sudden backstep, did the hand signs for Suiton, Teppadama, liquid bullets, and fired several powerful blasts of water at Naruto. The blasts connected with Naruto and sent her crashing into a tree a few yards away. A tri-pronged kunai could be seen flying through the air before sticking to the ground, having been knocked off Naruto with the concussive force of the Suiton attack. Deciding to finish this, Haku launched herself at Naruto, paralyzing poison-covered senbon in hand. Suddenly, where the tri-pronged kunai had landed, a figure appeared with a flash of yellow, this newcomer being none other than Minato Namikaze. He had felt the pull from the kunai he had given Naruto in case of emergencies and had appeared only to see an unknown assailant about to plunge several senbon into his daughter. Quickly creating a Rasengan, Minato dashed forward. Minato drove the Rasengan towards the unknown assailant only for a poof of smoke to obscure the details in front of him and a new person taking the place of the former assailant. Thinking nothing of this, Minato continued his attack, even adding a bit more chakra for extra power, and only allowed the Rasengan to explode and send the enemy flying through several trees after being reasonably confident that whoever he had just attacked would no longer be getting up. Naruto was suddenly hurt as Minato's blood ran cold and he quickly looked at the shinobi he had more than likely just killed. Spiky, silver hair, whisker marks. Oh Kami, what have I done? Minato thought as he felt his body lock up in shock. Before Minato could recover, he saw a blur fly past him and land next to Naruto. Naruto-sama. Don't worry, Naruto-sama. You'll be alright. You'll be alright. Please just be alright. Haku cried out desperately as she cradled Naruto's head and could see the amount of damage that attack had done. An immense feeling of guilt flooded her body as she rocked back and forth while cradling Naruto's head. The moments after Naruto switched places with her via substitution replaying in her head as she saw Naruto take that devastating attack. Ani-chan. Naruto cried out as she forced herself up and ran towards her downed former brother. But before she could reach him, Haku aggressively brandished several senbon that stopped her in her tracks. Don't you come any closer. Haku yelled with primal fury as she gently laid Naruto's head down and stood in front of him protectively. If need be, she would gladly die in order to get Naruto to safety. I just want to help my Ani-chan. Naruto yelled out with tears in her eyes as she stared at Haku's angered visage. Really? Like you helped when he was all alone and attacked as a child. Haku yelled back with tears rolling down her face. If only we had left sooner. Before Naruto could respond, she saw a flash of yellow as her father appeared next to Haku and with a simple punch, knocked her unconscious. Kakashi. I'll send an Anbu unit to relieve you. I'm taking Naruto and this woman with me. Minato yelled as Naruto ran to her father and everyone mentioned disappeared in a yellow flash before Kakashi could even respond. Naruto, Kakashi said with a melancholy air as he stared into the sky and felt the sins of the past once again weigh upon him. Would there ever be a time where he didn't let someone down? Unknown time later, unknown place. Naruto opened his eyes only to see a brilliant blue sky. Beneath him he felt soft grass that was incredibly comfortable at the moment. But, wasn't I having a fight in Nami? Before Naruto could think further on this, he heard soft footsteps approaching. Naruto then sat up and stared in the direction of the footsteps, only to have his jaw fall open in shock as a bit of blood dripped from his nose. In front of him was Amaru and Haku, but both were garbed in bikinis that were so small that they left incredibly little to the imagination. Amaru's was a deep red, while Haku's was a pale blue. Naruto-kun sama. They both shouted simultaneously as they reached him. You finally woke up, Naruto-kun. Took you long enough. Now come on, it's time to go swimming. Amaru said as she grabbed one of Naruto's arms and dragged him up. Swimming? Naruto said, confused since they were in a forest. Of course, Naruto-sama. Why else would we all be in swimwear? Haku jovially said as Naruto realized he was in swim trunks and that the grass beneath his feet had morphed into sand without him knowing it. The gentle lull of lapping waves filling his ears as the scent of the sea reached him as well. Sure. Naruto replied as he allowed Haku to grab his other arm and he was met with the delightful sensation of two beautiful girls holding his arms tightly to their chests. Naruto found himself becoming lost to the feeling as he was walked towards the sea. Looks like a great day for a swim, doesn't it? Naruto happily said as he, Haku and Amaru would go on to spend a day having quite a bit of fun. As night fell, Naruto found himself sitting on the sand in front of a bonfire with Haku and Amaru both resting their heads on either of his shoulders. It was such a great day, Naruto-kun. Yeah, but I know something that will make it even better, Haku said in a lusty tone as she grabbed Naruto's head and oh so slowly moved her face closer to his as Naruto expressed no resistance. Their lips gradually grew closer as Naruto felt excitement and nervousness bloom in his chest at what was to come. Wake the fuck up. Was maliciously shouted as Naruto suddenly saw Kyuubi's head replacing Haku's. Real world, unknown place, unknown time. AI. Naruto yelled as he suddenly awoke and frantically looked around himself. After a few seconds of frenzied investigation he realized he was in what looked like a hospital room from all the white well everything and the smell of antiseptic permeating the air. As Naruto tried to move he realized that there was chakra sealing cuffs on both his arms chaining him to the bed. Well, shit. He softly mumbled to himself as the gravity of his situation started to take root. Yep. That's about the best way to sum this up. Kyuubi chimed in. Kyuubi? The hell happened? What happened you ask? Well dipshit, this is a hospital. This is where you go when you intercept an A rank technique by a cage-level shinobi who put an extra bit of oomph into it to make sure you die. If it weren't for your healing factor and that small bit of chakra metal you were able to cover yourself with you would have been goo splattered across the trees lining the shore of Nami no Kuni right now. I've spent about 3 days personally healing your dumbus since the damage was so severe. I have to give that bastard Cage credit though, the Rasengan is nasty on fleshy meatbags like yourself. Where's Haku? Fuck if I know. By the way, I made sure to reabsorb any chakra metal you had on you so they wouldn't get their hands on that. Be thankful. Thanks. And shit Naruto started before having his conversation interrupted by the door into his hospital room exploding as a pair of doctors stumbled in. We heard yelling. Is everything alright? The doctors yelled as they caught their breath. Unknown to Naruto, Minato had promised a terrible death to anyone who did not treat Naruto with all the care and respect they could muster. And no one wanted to argue with Minato right now. Stop yelling. This is a hospital for Kami's sake. The clearly, now, fine Naruto yelled back at the newly chastised doctors who meekly bowed their heads before leaving and closing the door behind them. Naruto knew that the second they left the room they would be sending word that he was awake. In all honesty, he was surprised that Kushina, Minato or Naruto were absent from his room in the first place. Sure enough, within a few minutes the door was once again thrown open as Minato, Kushina and Naruto filed in. Minato with a complicated expression on his face, Naruto with melancholic joy and Kushina looking like she was about to explode from excitement. As Kushina was about to open her mouth to speak, she was cut off by Naruto. Where's Haku? Naruto coldly stated. The coldness in his voice instantly stopping Kushina in her tracks as she saw not the happy look of a child greeting their parents, but the steely stare of a captured nin waiting for the inevitable interrogation. What? But Naruto-chan, you're back. It's time for us. Where is Haku? Naruto interrupted once again, but this time with much more force and anger in his tone. But, Naruto-chan Kushina started before Minato put his hand on her shoulder and shook his head. She's currently in a holding cell in T&I Minato said with pain and sorrow etched into his face as he stared at Naruto. Take me to her. Now. Naruto said, the malice in his voice palpable as everyone could feel the anger radiating off of him. Before anyone could say anything, Minato nodded and walked towards Naruto as Kushina and Naruto stared at him confusedly. They realized what he was doing only a moment before it happened, but it was too late. Minato had put his hand on Naruto's shoulder and disappeared with his signature yellow flash. Seconds later, torture and interrogation holding area. Naruto and Minato appeared in front of Haku's cell, Minato having left a few in here earlier for just this occasion. The cells on this level of T&I were all roughly 6 by 9 feet, with a small bed in one corner and a toilet in the other, the upside being that these cells were kept relatively clean, since they were meant only for holding people, not as the beginning stages of a brutal interrogation. Haku was currently sitting in Caesar position in the center of her small cell, a stony expression on her face as she kept her eyes closed. Haku? Naruto yelled before dropping to his knees and reaching between the bars of the cell towards his dear friend. Upon hearing his voice, Haku's eyes opened as a deeply relieved look appeared on her face. She quickly scurried forward and accepted Naruto's comforting strokes across her cheek. Naruto-sama. I'm so glad you're alright. They wouldn't tell me anything of your condition. Haku stated as she enjoyed Naruto's comforting presence and the tender gestures of affection. Did they do anything to you, Haku? Naruto worriedly asked. No, Naruto-sama. They just threw me into this cell after having a mednin check me out. Haku said as Naruto uttered a sigh of relief. I hate to interrupt this touching moment, but we need to have a talk. Minato awkwardly said as he looked away. What had occurred in Nami had been eating away at him, and the sorrow and guilt he had felt since Naruto's disappearance had exploded in potency. It now almost physically hurt to look at Naruto. I want to be in the cell next to Haku. Naruto stated simply. I can arrange that. Minato softly replied. Let me speak with Haku for an hour, and I'll give you your talk, Naruto said as Minato nodded and spoke with a nearby Anbu before disappearing in a yellow flash. An hour later, Minato, Kushina and Naruto appeared in a yellow flash in front of Haku's cell, who was now curled up in her bed and in a deep sleep, having not slept since she awoke as a captured nin several days ago. They were confused for a moment at not seeing Naruto, but that was soon fixed when they saw him in the cell next to Haku's. He was lying on his back on the bed, staring at the ceiling seemingly without a care in the world. Keep your voices down, Haku is sleeping. Naruto said simply, still staring at the ceiling. Naruto-chan, it's so good to see you. I thought we had lost you. Kushina said as tears started to roll down her face. First off, don't call me with Chan. You lost all right to that quite some time ago, Kushina-san. And it wasn't exactly my choice to be here. Minato. Naruto, don't talk to your mother, Minato started quickly as a bead of cold sweat ran down his forehead. He had never told Kushina how Naruto got so wounded, and in the emotional rollercoaster that had been the past several days, Naruto never mentioned it. Don't ever call yourselves my parents. Naruto said as he bolted upright and gave Minato and Kushina a deathly cold glare filled with anger. We are not family. We are not friends. I am a captured nin and you are my captors. How can you say that, Naruto-chan? I don't know, maybe because you fucking abandoned me for most of my life. Naruto sarcastically spat out as he was rapidly losing his control over his emotions. Naruto, we did the best we could. No. You didn't. Naruto softly replied as he remembered all those times he spent alone in Konoha as his former parents busied themselves with everything but him. An awkward silence fell upon everyone as they all realized that at this moment in time, nothing would be able to be sorted out. At least you'll move back home now, Ani-chan. Naruto said as a small smile graced her face at the thought of waking up with Naruto once again in her life. Nope. I'll be staying right here. In the cell. But why? Naruto yelled. What did I tell you about keeping it down? Naruto said with a scolding older brother tone that made Naruto meekly bow her head and utter an apology. Like I said, I'm staying here with Haku. I won't be going back to that place. Naruto finished while Kushina buried her face in Minato's shoulder as she couldn't stop the tears anymore. It hurt quite a bit to see how deeply she and Minato had ruined their relationship with Naruto. How about a compromise? You and Haku could be placed under house arrest with one of the major clans of Konoha. Minato offered, not wanting to see Naruto in a cell surrounded by scum. Make it the Hyuga clan, and I'll accept it. Naruto said after giving it some thought. Hopefully he was still in the good graces of the Hyuga. I'll see what I can do. Come on, Kushina, Naruto-chan. Minato said as he gently led them both away. He felt they needed a bit of a walk to help clear their heads. Hokage's office, 45 minutes later. Hiashi, his wife Hitomi and their 2 daughters had just been summoned by the Hokage for an important meeting, and now they were all standing in front of a haggard-looking Minato. The sadness in his eyes and posture was incredible as Hiashi felt a twinge of sorrow for his former friend. You summoned us, Hokage-sama. Hitomi softly called out. Knowing how strained it was whenever her husband and Minato spoke. Yes, Hitomi-sama. Recently we have recovered 2 nin that I will be putting under house arrest. To only be allowed out when accompanied by at least 1 escort. I was hoping to have your clan take this assignment. You will be paid accordingly for your service, of course. Who are these nins? Hitomi replied. Well, this was a bit of an odd request. Hitomi knew Minato would not ask unless there was a deeper reason behind this. She had heard from a friend that an entire wing of the hospital was off limits at the moment, and Anko had told her rumors about a super VIP prisoner kept in a recently emptied and restricted area of T&I. They were in an area that was only guarded by the Hokage's personal Anbu unit, and even interrogators like Ibiki and Inoichi weren't allowed access. One is a Kunoichi named Haku. She should not be too much trouble. And the other is Naruto. Minato said to a room filled with a surreal silence as the Hyuga family took a moment to digest this. And Naruto-kun, he's back. Hinata said as the surprise was so great that she momentarily reverted to her old stuttering habits. Ani-sama's alive. Hanabi whispered quietly as she felt tears gather in the corner of her eyes. Why are you asking us this, Hokage-sama? Hiashi suddenly spoke as he gave Minato a questioning look. Because Naruto refuses to even step foot in my home. He would prefer a prison cell at T&I if given a choice between the two. Minato softly said as he clenched both his fists tight enough to draw blood. I see. We accept. Please deliver Naruto-kun to us soon. Hiashi said as a frown briefly appeared on his face before he turned around and left. Minato had created his own problems, it was not Hiashi's place to console him. Hitomi quickly uttered a farewell as she grabbed both her dazed daughters and went after her husband. Half an hour later, a garden within the Hyuga clan compound. Hiashi, Hitomi, Hinata and Hanabi were gathered in the inner garden where Minato had previously planted a fuin for his signature technique. And Anbu having alerted them that the drop-off would be happening soon, it would be any moment now that they finally met with someone that they had all been missing for years. Anko would have been there as well, but unfortunately she had left for a mission earlier that day. Everyone fidgeted nervously as the seconds ticked by until a bright yellow flash appeared in front of them as a trio of people appeared. Naruto was once again in the Hyuga clan compound. Without giving it a second thought, Hinata and Hanabi both barreled into the tall silver-haired young man and clung to him tightly. Minato had given Hiashi and Hitomi a simple nod before flashing away. "Naruto-kun Ani-sama," was happily yelled by the sisters as they relished in finally having their dear Naruto back. "And who are they, Naruto-sama?" The annoyed voice of the previously ignored Haku rang out as everyone noticed that she too was here. And the fact that she had called Naruto, Naruto-sama. "Naruto-kun, why is she calling you Naruto-sama? Who is she, Ani-sama?" Oh, I may not have thought this out as well as I should have, Naruto thought to himself as he was faced with the questioning and angry gazes from both Hyuga sisters and Haku. Off to the side, Hiashi and Hitomi were valiantly trying to stifle their laughter at Naruto's current predicament. He always did liven things up whenever he was around. "Wow, this is beautiful. Ha 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 ha." Kyuubi's laughter echoed in Naruto's mind as he desperately tried to find a way to explain himself. Mizuno-kuni, rebel base. Zabuza had arrived in Mizuno-kuni recently and was now talking to his younger cousin Mei Terumi. With her charismatic nature and immense strength, Mei handled the rebellion while Zabuza helped fund it. He had far better contacts in the world at large. So far this arrangement had worked out spectacularly and now they were in the final stages of winning the Kiri civil war. "You know Zabunai, you always talk about your daughter and your student when we meet, but you've never shown me a picture of either of them. Why is that?" Mei curiously asked as she finished counting the huge sum of money Zabuza had just delivered to her. This would be more than enough to pay for the final preparations. "Really? Huh. That's odd, I could have sworn I've shown you them before." "Well, either way, here." Zabuza said distractedly as he fished out a recent photo of Haku and Naruto. Truthfully, Zabuza was worried about them since he had gotten a very bad feeling several days ago that would not fade. She's beautiful and oh my," Mei said jovially while she looked at Haku before then staring at Naruto. "That bastard Zabunai has been holding out on me. Hiding this beyond handsome fellow. I'll just make sure to properly introduce myself to him when we meet. After all, what student doesn't visit their sensei?" Yufufufu, Mei thought to herself as she now had a man worthy of her, something she had yet to find in all her 24 years, in her sight. After she captured Naruto's heart she would rub it in Zabuza's face as he would have to take back all those "you'll always be alone because your standards are too high" jokes he loved so damned much. Garden within the Hyuga clan compound. Shit. Naruto frantically thought as he failed at trying to come up with a way to pacify the angry gazes being directed at him from Haku, Hinata and Hanabi. In his mind, Kyuubi was laughing hysterically. "Well, Ani-sama, are you going to explain who she is?" Hanabi asked with a tone that threatened violence in the near future if the answer was unsatisfactory. Hinata and Haku on the other hand were intensely staring at one another and sizing up their, correctly, perceived rival. Taking a deep breath and telling Kyuubi to shut his trap, Naruto finally found his voice as Hiashi and Hitomi both wondered on how he would try to explain this and keep himself intact. "Hinata-chan, Hanabi-chan, this is Haku." Naruto started with a placating tone as he gestured to Haku. "We met on my travels and she has been my trusted comrade for the past few years. She saved my life several times, you know." Naruto finished as he saw Hinata and Hanabi give Haku a begrudging nod for helping to make sure their Naruto-kun was at least somewhat safe. They may be thankful, but that didn't mean they would allow Naruto to fall into another woman's hands. I think we can save the rest of Naruto's interesting tale for dinner tonight. Let's allow our house guests to rest for a bit and become acquainted with their new living quarters." Hiashi regally said after debating whether he should allow his daughters to continue their interrogation. His decision being to allow Naruto and his companion some time to themselves before the ruthless questioning began by both his daughters and his wife. "Indeed. Now come along, Hina-chan, Hana-chan. Naruto-chan has only just recovered from his injuries. You can all talk later." Hitomi said with a gentle smile on her face at being able to have her surrogate son back. Now she could finally get him into the family like she had wanted. Hinata and Hanabi both nodded before sending a final look towards Naruto and his friend Haku. Making a small gesture, Hitomi had a pair of branch members escort Naruto and Haku to their rooms. An hour later, Namika's compound. "Stop, Kushina," Minato said with a sad tone as he placed his hand on his wife's shoulder to keep her from busting into the Hyuga clan compound in order to abduct Naruto. "But our son is there. He's finally back, Minato. I can't just stand by." Kushina, currently outfitted as if she was about to destroy a fortress, said as her voice was starting to get a bit hysterical. "Kushina, Naruto doesn't want to see us at the moment. It would be best if we just leave him be for now. Let him get used to the village again and see how we can make it up to him from there. Minato said with an emotionless tone while his face betrayed the inner pain he was feeling at having to continue to stay at arm's length with Naruto. For now. I'm sure in time we'll be a family again, Minato thought to himself once again. If he didn't stay strong, he doubted he would be able to go through with what he had planned. But Kushina tried to argue before breaking down and crying once again in Minato's arms. As Minato comforted his wife, he absently thought on whether all these painful feelings would ever end. Or rather, did they deserve for it to end? He and Kushina had failed Naruto in possibly the most profound way possible, and yet no. That line of thought would fix nothing. He had to stay strong in order to do what was needed in order to better the situation. He had to stick to his plan, but for now he would comfort his wife. Hyuga clan dining room. Naruto was currently wearing a fine tan kimono gifted to him by the Hyuga as he sat to the left of Hitomi Hyuga, who was seated at the head of the rather broad table alongside her husband, with Haku, in a comfortable blue kimono, herself sitting on his left. As Naruto sat there, he took note of the incredibly awkward silence filling the room. The Hyuga sisters themselves were sitting directly across from the metal and ice duo. Well, awkward for him since Hinata, Hanabi and Haku were all pointedly staring at him, while Hitomi and Hiashi were eagerly waiting for the interrogation to begin. "Ah, it seems the food has arrived," Hitomi jovially said as the branch members placed dinner before those sitting at the table. The group chorused a clear-eyed Akamasu and began to eat. "So, it would be nice to hear about how you have been since your departure from the village, Naruto-chan," Hitomi politely said as a way to start this conversation peacefully as they were all quietly enjoying their meal. "Well, there isn't much to tell really," Naruto said as he rubbed the back of his head. "But I guess I may as well start from beginning." And so Naruto launched into a summarized version of his time outside the village, obviously cutting out his Kekai Genkai and knowledge of Kyuubi, for now anyways, with Haku adding details when he reached the portion of his tale that involved her. Although he noticed that when he mentioned Amaru and their final meeting, Haku, Hinata and Hanabi all gave him a rather angry glare. Why are they so angry about what she said? Naruto thought to himself as Kyuubi snickered in his mind. And that's about it when it comes to my little adventure. Naruto finished as the Hyuga family looked baffled at the crazy adventures he had often found himself in. "Wow, Ani-sama. That sounds so awesome," Hanabi said with obvious adoration in her eyes, and for a moment Naruto actually thought he saw stars and hearts in her eyes, but he quickly rid himself of that notion. She had always looked up to her Ani-sama, and with his traveling experiences now laid out before her, she found herself idolizing him more. "I'm glad you had fun with your friend Naruto-kun," Hinata said as she gave Haku a meaningful look at the word friend. Hinata had loved Naruto too deeply and for too long to allow some newcomer any leeway with her man. "Thanks, Hinata-chan. It was rather fun now that I think back on it all," Naruto said as he completely missed the silent war happening between Hinata and Haku. Meanwhile Hitomi and Hiashi were keeping up stoic masks as they enjoyed the show. "Of course Naruto-sama's best times were spent with me at his side. I took care of his needs and made sure he was always at his best. So yes, I am a very special kind of friend," Haku said with an incredibly polite tone as she stared into Hinata's eyes. The meaning behind her proclamation not being lost on the lavender-eyed heiress. "So, anything interesting happened while I've been away?" Naruto managed to ask a second before Hinata lost her cool and viciously attacked Haku. "Eh? Oh. Yes. Quite a bit actually," the caught off guard Hinata said as she recounted what had occurred in the village. The biggest piece of news being the failed Uchiha rebellion. It seemed that the former clan head Fugaku went mad and tried to start a civil war, but was brutally and efficiently taken down along with his followers by his son Itachi, who was then proclaimed clan head. She also mentioned the historic decision of Kumo to attend the Chunin exams happening in a few weeks. It seems things have been interesting these past 8 years," Naruto said as he continued to talk with the Hyuga family for the remainder of the dinner. Haku on the other hand kept up with her icy politeness towards the Hyuga sisters, something that Naruto inevitably noticed but decided to discuss with her later. The next morning, Hokage's office. "You wanted to see us, Hokage-sama," Naruto said with an emotionless tone as he and Haku stood in front of Minato, who had a grave expression on his face. They had been summoned a few minutes after breakfast had ended, much to the dismay of the Hyuga family, and were told to immediately report in. "Yes. I wanted to tell you two of your current position within Konoha." At this both Haku and Naruto stiffened as they readied themselves for the worst. "Haku-san, after much investigation we have found that you have no ties to the government of any foreign villages, nor are you listed as a criminal. So you are free to leave Konoha when you wish to," Minato said as Naruto embraced Haku in a fierce hug that she gladly returned. Ahem. Minato coughed into his hands as the hug the two shared lasted for a bit too long. Naruto, however, is now conscripted into the Konoha Shinobi Corps and will be given a rank after being tested sometime tomorrow. The silence that followed was deafening. "What?" Naruto dumbly asked after several moments of silence. You are now a Konoha shinobi. Minato evenly said as he stared at a flabbergasted Naruto. Minato knew how Naruto would feel about this decision, but as long as it kept his son in Konoha where he and his broken family could at least try to mend things, then it would be worth the temporary, or so he thought, anger. You can't do this. What gives you the right to shackle me to this hellhole? Naruto yelled as the surprise quickly turned into white-hot fury. Haku meanwhile was trying to wrap her mind around the situation. Like it or not, Konoha is your home. Minato said simply as he did his best to keep gazing into Naruto's eyes. Unseen by either Haku or Naruto, Minato had surreptitiously formed a half-ram sign. Fuck you. Naruto said as he finally snapped and tried to launch himself at his former father, only to suddenly find he had lost control of his body and could no longer move. Haku herself was suddenly surrounded by several Anbu who had their blades pointed at her as a warning. What the hell did you do? Naruto questioned as he futilely tried to move. I'm sorry, Naruto. I prepared this as a last-ditch effort to keep you here. It's a tracking, paralysis and minor obedience seal that can be activated anywhere. Minato said as he could feel the waves of anger Naruto was emitting. When? Naruto asked as his voice took on a strange metallic quality, the sclera of his eyes starting to take on a metallic gray hue. When you were in the hospital. I didn't want it to be this way, Naruto. But I couldn't risk you leaving after we finally found you, Minato said in a pleading tone as he stared intensely at his desk as he felt waves of shame wash over him. Doing so, however, made him completely miss what was happening to Naruto's eyes. Make no mistake, Minato, I will get you back for this. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but I will get my pound of flesh from you one day. Naruto said in his strange tone as he closed his eyes and forcefully calmed himself. Well, calm enough so that he could get out of here and sneak away into the forest of death for some stress relief. I see, Minato accepted with a broken tone. Stay strong, Minato. This was necessary, his anger will fade eventually. Please let it fade. After a few minutes and feeling that Naruto had calmed himself sufficiently, Minato released the seal and ordered his Anbu to go back to their hidden positions. Naruto then immediately left the office with a despondent Haku following closely. Minato sighed heavily as he realized that his attempt at fixing his family may have driven it further apart. Outside the office, Haku, tell everyone that I need to be alone for a while. Naruto quickly said as he found himself alone with his trusted companion. Alright. Naruto-sama, Haku said as she gently laid a hand on Naruto's shoulder and gave it a reassuring squeeze. I want you to know that no matter how this pans out, I will always remain at your side. Naruto placed his hand over Haku's and returned the squeeze as he felt a strange heat fill his chest. The absolute devotion that Naruto could hear in her voice made his own lock up for some reason as he felt a new emotion fighting with the white-hot anger. Unable to voice his feelings at the moment, he gave a simple nod and soon left, disappearing into the distance as Haku stared at the place he once occupied. Letting out a soft sigh, Haku left for the Hyuga compound. Her mind filled with anger and worry over the current situation. Forest of Death. Half an hour later, Naruto was running deep into the Forest of Death to the area Anko had warned him in his youth to avoid. Right now though, he really needed to vent this anger, and what better way than by viciously killing things that wanted to devour him. The worrying thing, however, was the metallic gray that had now completely covered his sclera like a coating of mercury. Calm down, Naruto. This anger isn't yours anymore. Kyuubi tried to reason with Naruto. At first the anger was all him, but as Naruto started to lose himself to it, Kyuubi felt some other entity starting to influence his consciousness. Naruto ignored the titanic fox as he finally landed in the middle of a pack of tigers, at least a few dozen by Kyuubi's count, each being larger than a decently sized house. Raya! Naruto roared in challenge as the tigers finally took notice of him. Before they could react, Naruto exploded into action as metal coated his fist that then smashed through the skull of the nearest tiger. The remaining tigers roared in anger at the loss of their own and quickly moved to tear apart this foolish human. The Forest of Death would echo with demonic-sounding roars for hours as, blinded by rage, Naruto tore his way through anything and everything he could make bleed. Roughly the same time, Hyuga compound, inner garden, and that is what transpired at the meeting. Afterwards, Naruto-sama asked me to inform all of you as he needed to be alone for a time. Haku succinctly finished her report to the gathered Hyuga family. Minato seems intent on making as many mistakes as he possibly can, it seems. Hiashi said with anger and disappointment, lacing his normally emotionless voice. This does not bode well for the future. We must do what we can for Naruto-chan. Hitomi stated with a hint of steel entering her normally gentle voice. She then looked at her daughters before gazing intently at Haku. Haku-san, am I to assume that you will be staying with us for a bit longer for Naruto-chan's sake? Of course. I will not abandon my Naruto-sama. Haku responded sincerely as she held the Hyuga matriarch stare. Slowly, a smile formed on Hitomi's face. Good. Naruto-chan will need all the support he can get at the moment. Which means, Hitomi then took a moment to partially unleash her killing intent on both her daughters and her newest ward. that the squabble you three have with one another will be temporarily put on hold to focus on more important matters. Understood. Hitomi said with a sickeningly sweet smile that oddly matched her current aura of absolute authority and pain for those that disobeyed. The three love-struck girls could only nod as they found themselves resisting the urge to get on their knees and bow to the queen of this estate. The Ashi could only look on in sympathy. His beloved Hitomi may be the sweetest and gentlest of women, but that was when she was in a decent mood. When she got serious or in a bad mood, the side of her that served as an Anbu captain during the Third Shinobi World War emerged. And her current worry over the boy she had all but adopted as her son had unleashed that beast. Unknown place and time. Naruto was floating in what looked like a sea of mercury as he found himself unable to remember the circumstances that led to him being here. At the moment he couldn't find it within himself to care as he lazily floated along. It was relaxing in an odd way. So, are you just going to float there or are you going to say something? A new voice said as Naruto looked around himself for the source. Who are you? He said as the sea of mercury started to disappear before flowing towards a now empty spot a few dozen feet from him. Naruto stared in wonder as the mercury started to form itself into a powerful maelstrom that gradually shrunk in on itself. Eventually the swirling mercury started to take a vaguely humanoid shape before finally becoming a woman who started to seductively stretch. This unknown woman was of a decent height at about 5'6". She had short grayish blue hair that was cut short and covered her right eye. Her face was angular and sharp and, while incredibly beautiful, gave her the look of a veteran warrior ready for battle. But the most important part of this woman was the fact that she seemed to have a darker version of Naruto's chakra metal. Her curvy frame, she had at least a C-cup as far as Naruto could tell, was provocatively covered in the metal that, in the right light, made it seem as if she were completely nude. Naruto also noted that her back and most of her exquisite rump was devoid of the chakra metal as he caught glimpses of her smooth peach-tinted skin while she stretched. Like what you see. She purred out at Naruto's obvious staring. Who are you? Me? Unfortunately, I don't have time to explain. I'm not strong enough to stay together for much longer, so I let the fox do that for me. But for now, I'll leave you with my name. Remember it well, Naruto-kun, the mysterious woman said as she suddenly closed the distance between herself and Naruto. She leaned in close to Naruto and, standing on her tiptoes, placed a kiss on his cheek before uttering Asura. The now named Asura then lost cohesion and became liquid mercury that was absorbed into the ground. Well, that wasn't good. Kyuubi's voice suddenly boomed out as Naruto saw that he was right next to the giant fox's cage. His mind being the same as it ever was. Where have you been, Kyuubi? Naruto questioned, a bit unsettled by what had just occurred. Me? I've always been here. You couldn't tell because that bitch had you in her grip. The giant fox said with anger in every syllable. Who the hell was she? Remember all those years ago when we first made our deal? Naruto nodded. Do you remember one of the side effects the chakra metal would have had I not interfered? The side effect of insanity. As Naruto's eyes shot wide open, Kyuubi continued. Well, it seems that I did not completely erase that effect. In fact, by purging most of it, the strongest remnants bonded together and mutated further. That Asura was the will of your chakra metal. It's insanity and, thanks to the accidental influence of my own nature, rage. But how can chakra have a will of its own? Naruto yelled before he saw one massive vulpine eyebrow eyes. The massive sentient chakra beast known as Kyuubi wondered why it had agreed to partner with the silver-haired idiot sometimes. Right, sorry, Naruto sheepishly said as he looked away. Anyways, right now Asura isn't strong enough to really do anything unless you completely give in like you did earlier. That will soon change, however. Soon, she will gain the power necessary to influence you even at your most calm. What can I do about this? Keep better control of yourself for now. Eventually though, you and her will have to fight in order to establish who will be wearing the pants in your relationship. But for now, if she ever tries to speak to you, I suggest you oblige. Why? Won't she just try to control me? Unlike the magnificent and beyond powerful me, at this Naruto had to stifle a snort. She will never grow powerful enough outright control you. Just influence, a powerful influence that could drive you to madness, but an influence nonetheless. The reason to speak to her is simple, she is your chakra metal. With her cooperation, your power and control will grow exponentially. Without it, progress will be incredibly slow. Why must everything be so complicated? Naruto said with a deep sigh as he wondered on the normality of having two voices in his head, one a sadistic and ancient being that enjoyed toying with him, the other a being that, in a way, was an extension of himself that wanted to drive him into insanity. Does it really matter? At least it isn't boring. Now buck up, someone is coming. Before Naruto could ask who this person was, he was forcefully thrown from his mind and into the realm of reality. Forest of death, bloody clearing, unknown time. Wake up, Naruto-kun. If you don't, I'm going to molest you. Phew from Naruto heard a seductive and rather familiar voice say as he started to fully wake up. Ugh, where am I? he blearily said as he opened his eyes only to stare into a pair of honey-colored orbs that he was incredibly familiar with. "Hey Anko-ni?" he questioned softly. His reply was a gentle kiss to the forehead that confirmed his thoughts on the identity of the person. "Yeah, it's me," Anko said kindly as she stood up from her position of intensely staring at Naruto. "Nice job tearing up the place, by the way." As she continued to look at the boy that had found a way into her heart so many years ago, Anko could only marvel at how well he had grown. She wasn't kidding about molesting him if he did not awaken. The best thing was that now she could start a relationship with him without being labeled a pedo. All those years of waiting were well worth it, she concluded. Unknown to her, Naruto was also marveling at just how sexy his Anko-ni was. "What time is it, Anko-ni?" Naruto asked as he forcefully ripped his mind from the gutter. "Stupid hormones. I'd say about noon." "I see. So it hasn't been that long since the meeting." "Oh, that meeting was yesterday. I returned from my mission this morning and was immediately set out to look for you since you didn't come back to the Hyuga compound last night," Anko said with a bit of glee in her voice. She couldn't help it, she was just so damned happy to have Naruto back. It was only her weakening willpower that kept her from smothering Naruto to death in a hug that could bend steel. XX flashback. Roughly an hour earlier at the Hyuga compound XX. Sigh. What a waste of time. Anko blearily said as she entered the Hyuga compound. Her mission had been completed when it turned out that the noble she and her, specifically requested and all-female, squad members were guarding, thought that Kunoichi was synonymous with hooker. After correcting that thought of his, he gave them the amount owed, along with a generous tip, and presumably would forever associate the word Kunoichi with horrible pain. She had then returned to Konoha, eager to spend her earnings on some high-quality dango and sake with close friends. Although, she noticed that it was oddly quiet at the place she called a second home. There was usually a few Hyuga entering or departing on some kind of business, but right now it was empty except for the ever-present guards. As she made it further into the Hyuga compound in search of some of her favorite people, she heard Hitomi's voice coming from one of the gardens. Quickly appearing in said garden, Anko was rather confused as to why there was a few dozen Hyuga standing in neat rows, while Hitomi stood in front of them like a wartime commander. "Hey Hitomi-sama. What's with all the ruckus?" Anko loudly asked. Even having etiquette drilled into her by Hitomi could not rid Anko of all her rough edges, not that anyone minded. "Anko-chan," Hitomi said, surprised. No one expected Anko to return for at least a week. "Yo. My mission was concluded early so I hightailed it back here." "So what's going on?" Anko replied cheerfully and more than a little curious. Hitomi then proceeded to explain the situation and Anko found herself going through a strange storm of emotions. Disbelief, happiness, rage and disgust being a few of the bigger ones. "If I still know Naruto like I think I do, then I know where he is," Anko said seriously and then left after assuring Hitomi that she would soon return. XX flashback and XX. "Come on now. It's lunchtime after all," Anko said as she helped Naruto up. "Oh, and before I forget it," this Naruto looked at her curiously before receiving a chakra-enhanced punch that broke his nose. "That was for worrying everyone and disappearing on me for all these years," Anko said over Naruto's howls of pain before she grabbed him by the hair and forcefully kissed him. Well, it was more like she violated his mouth, considering how aggressive she was being with her tongue, as she savored both the kiss and the blood from her earlier attack. "And that's for coming back to me. I look forward to spending some quality time together with you." "Yufufufu," Anko said with a tone that sent shivers down Naruto's spine as he snapped his nose back into place and tried to wrap his mind around what just happened. "If only she were a giant sentient chakra beast," Kyuubi said with a sigh. "You better hit that and hit it hard." "Shut up," Naruto angrily told the giant fox as he followed his dear friend out of the forest. He never noticed her scarlet blush and the fact that she seemed to be taking the longest route out of the forest. A bit later, Hyuga clan compound entrance. "What the hell are you doing here?" Naruto snarled as he saw Minato and a small group of Anbu at the front entrance, along with Hinata, Hanabi, Haku, Hiashi and Hitomi. "I came to get you for the test of skills," Minato replied as he looked away. The raw anger in Naruto's gaze made him unable to meet his eyes. "I will allow anyone you wish to accompany you. You have an hour to get to training ground 7. Let's get this over with," Naruto said as he left to go have a small meal and bathe, making sure to wrap both of his arms in bandages this time. Training ground 7, an hour later, a rather impressive group was gathered at the training ground. The Hokage and his family, the clan heads who had just been informed of what was about to occur, Danzo, who was still displeased about being denied the opportunity to train the Yondame's children, several elite Jonin that were there to aid in the testing and, of course, the Hyuga family +2. "Alright Naruto, the test is rather simple. You'll fight a trio of Jonin and we'll see where you stand," Minato said as he handed Naruto his shakudo. Naruto refused to say anything and merely nodded as he went to stand in the middle of the clearing. pointedly ignoring Kushina's wave and shout of hello, though he did give Naruto a nod at her greeting. As Naruto waited, he saw a trio of Jonin appear in front him. He recognized Minato's last student Kakashi Haddock, who gave him a lazy wave which was answered with a hateful glare, an unknown purple-haired Anbu with a sword strapped to her back, and a rather strange-looking man in a green jumpsuit with a bowl haircut. "Hello youthful Naruto-kun. My name is Might Guy." The now-named strange man said as he smiled blindingly and gave Naruto a thumbs up. Naruto was unsure on how to respond to such enthusiasm. "And I am Hyuga Yuzuki," the Anbu said quickly, knowing that meeting Guy for the first time tended to leave someone speechless. Hyuga had always wondered on the subject of her friend Anko's well-known affection. And now seeing him in the flesh and all grown up, well, Hyuga had to admit that Anko had very good foresight and taste. "We will be testing you today. We will start at Hokage-sama's signal," Hyuga finished in a business-like tone. Naruto merely nodded and readied himself for the battle that was about to come. Minato then threw a kunai into the air. As its graceful arc came to an end and it sunk into the earth, both sides exploded into action. Naruto had his Shakudo out and managed to block the lightning-fast slash from Hyuga. This lasted for merely a moment however, as Guy came at Naruto's right in order to deliver a devastating haymaker. Deciding to avoid the punch, Naruto used his superior strength to violently push the now surprised Hyuga back as he then sidestepped Guy's attack. This, however, led directly into Kakashi's attack as he erupted from the ground with his kunai ready to pierce Naruto's side. Naruto did not take kindly to this as he used a burst of speed to smack away the kunai with his Shakudo before using a chakra-powered jump to gain some distance. Landing a fair bit away, Naruto observed his adversaries as they did the same. Deciding that the odds were a bit too against him at the moment, Naruto made the tiger seal as a thick mist soon descended upon the clearing. Using the Kurigakure no Jutsu would give Naruto a serious advantage since Zabuza had made damn sure that he mastered it and the little stare-off ensured Naruto had built up enough chakra to make it even thicker than usual. "Shit. Kakashi, can your Sharingan see through the mist?" Hyuga asked as she and her comrades immediately formed a triangle to ensure that Naruto could not easily sneak up on them. "Unfortunately no. The mist is primarily comprised of chakra, so my Sharingan wouldn't be able to pierce it. Although, with the thickness and amount created he shouldn't have too much chakra left. Talking is a terrible thing." Naruto's voice suddenly rang out as he appeared before Hyuga with a powerful horizontal slash that she managed to block for a brief second before her blade snapped in half. She barely managed to evade being cut in half as she utilized a back step. However, she was now weaponless and had received a shallow but long cut across her abdomen. Kakashi and Guy both leapt to her side and guarded her. They took stock of the situation. I want you to guard Hyuga. I've got something that'll be able to deal with this mist," Kakashi said as he jumped into the mist with a kunai in his hand. "Was that really wise?" Naruto's voice boomed out from every direction as Kakashi awaited his attack. "A shinobi must do what is necessary. If you say so," Naruto said as he suddenly appeared behind Kakashi with a one-handed downward swing of his blade. Kakashi used his vast experience to judge the blade's course as he leaned out of the way just enough for the blade to scratch his shoulder, but not enough for it to do any real damage. Expecting Naruto to disappear into the mist again, Kakashi was caught off guard by his follow-up attack as a vicious chakra-enhanced jab to his ribs sent him flying back. Unknown to him, Naruto had covered his fists in his chakra metal in order to throw in powerful taijutsu attacks when his blade missed. As Kakashi corrected himself midair and landed, he fell to one knee from the amount of pain the attack caused. Dear Kami. It felt like a punch from Tsunade-sama. That must have broken at least 3 ribs before Kakashi could stand up again. He felt a blade against his neck. What? The mist then cleared to show Hyuga held hostage by water clones as Guy looked on, knowing full well he would not be able to free her. "How?" Kakashi dumbly asked. "My Suiton has been trained extensively, so much so that I can use several techniques without a source of water. I didn't use any earlier in the fight specifically so you, the only one with any experience fighting me, would think my arsenal was severely limited and thus not warn your teammates. You underestimated me Kakashi and it seems you forgot my invisibility technique from Nami," Naruto said smugly. "I also made sure to target you and Hyuga-san. I already had a rough understanding on how you fight and I am rather good with Kinjutsu, so Hyuga-san was a good target. I was unsure if I could fight Guy-san toe-to-toe, so I took him out of the equation via distractions in the mist. I will admit, had I not been able to separate you three and enact my strategy, I would have lost," Naruto finished in an analytical tone. He had been trained, tortured by Zabuza to always examine his battles extensively in order to improve. "I see," Kakashi said as he realized he had underestimated Naruto. Instead of informing his teammates of his known skills he had assumed that they would win easily since it was several elite Jonin against one individual. He didn't even try to use his trump card the Sharingan. This realization deeply hurt his ego. As a ninja feeling the blade move away from his neck, Kakashi looked at Naruto only to find him staring at the approaching Hokage. Very impressive, Naruto. The Shinobi Council and I have decided that your rank will be Jonin. Minato said with a strained smile as Naruto merely nodded before body flickering back to the Hyuga compound to avoid speaking further to anyone he did not want to. Minato could only sigh at Naruto's actions as he looked at a despondent Kushina who had started running towards them in order to congratulate Naruto. Minato did however note that his daughter had also disappeared along with the Hyuga and Anko spectators during the fight. So that is Naruto, eh? The pup has certainly grown into an alpha. Tsume said as she could feel the alpha vibe coming from Naruto. My insects tell me to be weary of him. It seems his chakra is abnormal in some way. Shibi Aburam replied. Naruto-chan has always been special. Even if some people couldn't see it. Hitomi said proudly as her comment made both Kushina and Minato flinch. Hitomi may have returned to being friends with Kushina, but that did not mean she wasn't still deeply angry with her. Near Hitomi, Haku, Hinata, Hanabi and Anko smiled proudly as they vehemently agreed with Hitomi. We did the best we could. Minato softly said with Kushina nodding next to him. And it is that train of thought that keeps Naruto-kun preferring my home to yours. Hiashi coldly said as everyone stiffened at both his tone and harsh words. What do you mean, Hiashi? Minato asked with an edge to his voice. Mistakes are a terrible thing, Minato. But never admitting and apologizing for a mistake can sometimes be worse. Hiashi said as he gazed into Minato's eyes. It infuriated Hiashi to no end that Minato would keep trying to shift blame like this and not own up to things. Did the dumb bastard think he could sweep years of neglect under the rug by suddenly and forcefully trying to ingratiate himself into Naruto's life? At this, Minato looked away and kept quiet. No one spoke a word until the end of the fight when they determined Naruto's rank. Hyuga front entrance. It seemed that the Hyuga family +2 had the same thoughts as Naruto as they all appeared within seconds of each other in front of the compound. Before anyone could say anything, a new presence made itself known as Naruto appeared. Naruto-chan, what are you doing here? Hinata questioned as she noticed a strange look in her friend's eye. I came here to challenge my Ani-chan to a one-on-one fight. Naruto replied as she refused to look at anyone else but Naruto. A few days later, Kumagakure, Raikage's office. The Yondaime Raikage was not a stupid man. In fact, even with his thuggish looks and penchant for wanting to solve most problems with violence, he was still very shrewd. Which is why he was intensely staring at a cowering shinobi under his command that had just delivered information on their rival village Konoha. So, you're telling me that Namikaze's son is not only still alive, but back in Konoha. And not only that, there seems to be some incredibly bad blood between him and his family. Excuse me if I'm a bit skeptical. Said with simmering anger leaking into his tone. He did not like his time being wasted. It's true, Sama. Our spies have been keeping their ears to the ground and it seems Naruto-san will not even step foot in Namikaze-san's home. It is also well known that the villagers themselves despise him, though they can no longer show it openly. The loathing seems to be mutual on Naruto-san's end. The Kumo nin said as he handed the Raikage a folder filled with as much information as they could get on Naruto, including a rather decent photo. The Kumo nin did not mention that there seemed to be someone within Konoha that was rather eager to disseminate information on the former Namikaze. Go. On your way out, tell Mabui to get B and his team here. Said after thinking for a few moments and carefully looking through the rather well done file, the Kumo nin nodded quickly and left even quicker. He had seen what happened to B whenever he angered the short-tempered Raikage, such a fate should certainly be avoided at all costs. Yo bro. You call for me? The amazing and oh so skilled Killer B. Killer B said as he and his team entered a short while later. Shut the hell up B. Angrily said as he had to restrain himself from attacking his brother. At times he wondered if B rapped for the sole purpose of irritating him to no end. I called you all here because there has been an important change to your mission parameters. Said as everyone, even B, became deadly serious. Originally your mission was twofold. Dominate the Chunin exams to garner an increase in clientele and knock Konoha down a peg and to survey the village in order to see if they've been keeping up their security. At this, B and his Genin team nodded. This mission was the entire reason they had yet to be promoted after all. But, I've received word that Namikaze's son is alive and well. And he seems to be ripe for a conversion, A said as he slid the file towards B, who took it and after giving it a quick look handed it to his team. Both A and B smirked when they saw the vivid blushes that manifested themselves on the faces of Samui and Carrie. Oh, are my little Kunoichi fallen for the fish cake from the land of leaves? B rapped rather badly as Samui and Carrie sent him a glare. Amoy had lost himself in a daydream about how it could all go wrong the moment they stepped foot in Konoha, which somehow involved toads, snakes, slugs, rocks, several resurrected cage and, of all things, metal-coated fish cakes. Raikage-sama, are you sure Naruto-san would respond well to this? If he does not and alerts the Hokage, then the situation could become very bad very quickly. Samui asked in her stoic tone. Of course. If you had read the file instead of ogling the picture, then you would have seen just why I added this to your mission. A said with some humor in his tone as he saw Samui blush again. A may have been hard on his brother, but he did care rather deeply for his nieces. Samui, Yujito and Kari. At any rate, get in contact with him and give him the invitation. We may be on friendlier terms with Konoha right now, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't take opportunities when they present themselves. A finished in a serious tone as he saw everyone nod. If this kid had even half the talent his father and mother did, then this was well worth the risk. The clearing outside Iwagakure. It has been a long time, Orochimaru. Honestly, I wished it was longer. The Sandaime Tsuchikage Inoki said as he stared at the snake summoning Sannin. At the Tsuchikage's back was a small army of shinobi, since he knew better than to take the insane man before him lightly. You wound me, my dear Inoki. After all the times we've tried to kill each other, and yet you still treat me so coldly. The twisted snake said in a teasing tone as he stood in front of his own group of shinobi. But on to business. You've received the information from my messenger, correct? About my future plans and the return of a certain silver-haired boy. I did. Well. What is your answer to it? At this, Inoki made a small motion with his hands as a group of 10 shinobi walked forward. These are my contribution. If you and your little alliance fail to destroy the leaf or at the very least cripple it, then I will claim no knowledge on any of this and brand them as rogue nin. If you succeed, well, we'll cross that bridge if we get to it. Inoki said in a condescending tone. Inoki was never known for being pleasant. Quite a paltry number, don't you think? Orochimaru said as he narrowed his eyes. On the contrary, I handpicked them for this, and I am certain that they have the ability to accomplish their goals. Destroy Konoha's infrastructure and hunt down the Namikaze spawn. Inoki said with a smile at the thought of Minato's children being taken down by his own nin. Very well then. Farewell for now, Inoki. Orochimaru said as he left with his own forces and the new addition of elite Iwa shinobi. Konoha was headed for some troubling times, it seems. Harem, Hyuga clan compound. So, are you going to explain why you want to challenge me to a fight? Even after being there at my skill evaluation. Naruto calmly stated as he stared at Naruko, who was sitting across from him in the tea room. After her declaration, Naruto had asked for a bit of privacy in order to discuss just why his former sister needed to face him in combat. And here they were, sitting at a small table with fine tea served for them to enjoy. It doesn't matter. I have to try on Ii-chan. I have to, Naruko said as she looked Naruto in the eyes. You have to what exactly? I have to make you part of our family again. Even if it means beating the shit out of you and dragging your ass home. Naruko said with fire in her voice and eyes as she slammed her fist on the table and broke it in half, unknowingly adding a small bit of Kyuubi's chakra into her fist in her emotional outburst. I hope you intend to pay for that. And watch your language, Naruto. Naruto said evenly as he gently scolded his now embarrassed former sister. Kushina had warned Naruko that she should try to keep her temper under control, especially right now when she was in the throes of puberty. I will, Naruko said with a small voice before regaining her confidence. But I'm still dragging you home. Now, are you gonna accept my challenge or not? Sure, but only if you make it to the finals in the upcoming Chunin exams. Naruto said with a grin as he saw Naruko go from euphoric to confused to angry all within the span of a few seconds. Naruto found it rather amusing and wondered if his sensei Zabuza felt the same joy whenever he wait shit. Naruto then had to stifle the sudden wave of terror and panic that assaulted him in order to deal with the eruption in front of him. He could deal with his fear later, preferably in private. Why? The confused Reed yelled as she comically threw her arms in the air as her face gained a tint of red that would make Hinata rather proud. Because as it stands I would wipe the floor with you. Naruto replied honestly. But, no buts. You want to bring me home even after I've shown how much I hate that idea, so I'm going to make you earn it. Reach the finals and show me your resolve in this. Do that and I'll give you your match. Naruto finished with a serious tone. Fine. When I win the whole damn thing you better be ready for an ass kicking and to read me a bedtime story. Naruko responded with determination in her voice as she tightly clenched her fists and had fire burning in her eyes. A bedtime story? Naruto asked as he wondered if his former sister was all there. Of course. We have nearly a decade of sibling bonding to catch up on. And I want a bedtime story read to me by my Ani-chan. Naruko yelled to the world as a bit of her younger self poked through and Naruto envisioned a much younger Naruko in her place. At this, Naruto started to laugh as a wave of nostalgia crashed into him. Why are you laughing, Ani-chan? And nothing. Just remembering something. Naruto said as he reined in his laughter and began to gently pet Naruko's head like he had once done in their youth. Naruko still quite enjoyed it if her happy mules and relaxed posture said anything. They continued like this for a few more minutes before Naruko excused herself from the compound after promising to return and pay for the destroyed table, of course. Naruto then tried to enjoy a few moments of peace after having such an interesting talk with his former sister. Oi, brat. Sadly, that was not meant to be. What? Naruto tiredly thought before he was forcefully pulled into his mind and found himself in front of the giant sentient chakra beast that was sealed inside him, well the soul of said beast. Was this really necessary? Cut the attitude. We have business to discuss. Mind explaining your current plans? You seem much too calm after that little fiasco with the yellow-haired bastard. The ever-patient fox asked. Well, that depends. Can you corrupt the seal? And I need to think like a ninja, not fly off the handle like an idiot. Well, again. I'm insulted that you would even have to ask that. And I'm glad you're using that pea-sized brain of yours for once. The seal may have been very well made, but it didn't have anywhere near the amount of power needed to keep the properties of Kyuubi's corruptive soul at bay. Good. How long will that take? Naruto asked as he ignored the insult with the ease of constant practice. He watched as Kyuubi's eyes close for a few moments in concentration before answering. To make sure it doesn't set off the alarms and other bullshit the blonde bastard put in. Nearly 2 months. I can work with that. Naruto said while softly nodding his head in thought. Knowing that time passed incredibly slowly in his mindscape, Naruto allowed himself a good bit of time to mull over his options. Alright, here's the plan, you work on the seal corruption and I'll weasel some elemental training from this place. When the seal is gotten rid of, we'll ask for a high-class mission and disappear. Now to find a way to tell Haku without eavesdroppers getting us sent to prison. As sound a plan as I can expect from you. What of the Hyuga, Naruto and Anko? Well, shit. Naruto said as he scratched the back of his head in thought. He really did not want to hurt them, but he would be damned if he stayed in Konoha. I'll think of something before we escape. Naruto said quietly, more to reassure himself than anything. See to it that you do. I would hate to see what they would do to you otherwise. Kyuubi ominously warned as Naruto was sent back into the realm of reality. Naruto idly wondered how these next 2 months would go here in the accursed village of Konoha. Naruto then stood and was about to leave the room before he heard Kyuubi's voice boom in his mind. By the way, how do you think Zabuza will react to you getting his daughter captured? Kyuubi asked with a sadistic smile as Naruto froze on the spot before falling to his knees comically, all the while pointedly ignoring the arrival and curious gaze of a branch house Hyuga sent to check on him. Waves of fear and uncertainty swirled about Naruto as Kyuubi enjoyed every moment of the blonde's seemingly fear-based breakdown. Kyuubi wondered if messing with Naruto would ever get boring. It certainly hadn't so far, the beast thought with a chuckle that promised nothing but trouble. A week later, empty training ground. The past week had been rather nice for Naruto. He had not been summoned for a mission yet, nor was he given any orders, instead it was almost like he was being given time to acclimate to living in Konoha. Time Naruto spent training with his Anko ni, playing with Hanabi, hanging out with Hinata and Haku, and being the one to calm the rather common disputes the two had, and having tea with Hitomi and Hiashi. Naruto even came over a few times to have dinner or just talk. In all honesty it was a rather nice routine that Naruto almost regretted having to destroy in the future in order to escape. Almost. At the moment, Naruto was enjoying one of the rather rare times that he was alone. Sometimes it was nice to just lay back and watch the clouds by oneself. Naruto, for half a second, thought he heard a massive sneeze coming from the Nara clan compound before shaking the thought away as being too ridiculous. He then bolted upright and stared at a seemingly random place roughly 15 yards away and in between the trees that lined the training ground as he felt a minute pulse of chakra. What do you want? I came to talk. A familiar voice responded as a red-headed woman stepped out of the tree line and started to slowly walk forward. The woman being none other than a rather distraught-looking Kushina. Naruto had to admit, the woman's skill when it came to stealth was superb, considering she snuck up on him and was only discovered when she wanted him to find her. I would prefer it if you would stay where you are. Naruto said in a voice devoid of emotion as he reminded himself to keep calm. Oh okay. Kushina said as she stopped roughly 10 yards away and started to fidget and wring the hem of her dress. Now, what do you want? Naruto asked once again. I know about the seal. Kushina said as she looked into Naruto's eyes. And? If you're here to apologize, save your breath. Your words don't exactly hold much weight with me. Naruto said as he stood and prepared to leave only for Kushina to desperately shout. Wait. Please. I came here to help you. Come again? Naruto asked with more than a bit of surprise in his voice. He really expected her to try to apologize before justifying the need for the seal. I don't agree with the seal. I have just as much skill as Mina-kun in applying and removing them. So please, let me help you. Kushina said in a flurry as Naruto heard only sincerity in her voice. Explain how you found out first. Naruto said as he wanted to know how that went. Well, a few hours earlier, Hokage's office. You did what? A stunned Kushina asked as she stared at her husband. He had summoned her earlier in order to explain what he had done to keep Naruto in Konoha. His conscience had been eating away at him and he couldn't bear lying to his wife anymore. He had also sent out the Anbu guarding him in case this conversation got too personal. I put a seal on Naruto to keep him in the village. Please understand that it was for the best, Kushi-chan. Minato explained and hoped that Kushina would agree with him, if only to quell the doubts he was having himself. You. Stupid. Idiot. Kushina yelled before moving at a speed that made Minato proud in the dark recesses of his mind before she swiftly delivered an uppercut that was powered purely by the rage of an incredibly angered mother. Minato was sent flying into the air and broke through the window with incredible force as he soon fell victim to gravity. It was only by his instinctual use of his Hiraishin jutsu that he managed to reappear in his office, having tagged the office with a few injutsu necessary much earlier in his reign and not land rather painfully on the concrete outside. He was currently lying on the floor as he tried to get the room to stop spinning and hoped that his jaw wasn't completely shattered. Spitting out a few teeth, Minato managed to sit on the couch and continue the conversation. He also made a mental note to get a medic in to see if those teeth could be salvaged. Af was imp with F. Minato said as he rubbed his aching jaw. He admitted that he probably deserved that. Why are you such a dumbass? Is this how you earn someone's trust, by basically enslaving them? Goddamn it, Minato. Kushina raged as she paced back and forth. How else was I supposed to get him to stay? Minato asked, hoping for a genuine answer to the question that had plagued him for longer than it should have for a supposed genius like him. At this, Kushina stopped and thought on it. As much as she hated to admit it, Minato was right. Naruto would never have stayed otherwise. But it still wasn't right. I'm going to go remove that damn seal. Kushina said simply as she looked Minato in the eyes. The Yondaime Hokage seemed to sink into himself as he nodded before watching his wife angrily stomp out of the room. Minato stayed where he was for a few moments and wondered on why he was failing so spectacularly when it came to Naruto. Minato then remembered his jaw was probably shattered and some of his teeth were on the floor, so he decided to wonder on how much of a failure he was after he summoned a medic in. It would be much easier to berate himself when he could understand the words after all. X flashback and X. I then spent some time looking for you. Kushina finished her tale as Naruto looked thoughtful. This was certainly not what he was expecting to encounter today. Doesn't really change anything, though I'll have to decline. Naruto said with conviction after spending a few moments to think. Well, what? Why? Because I am not willing to owe you anything. I will deal with this seal like I've dealt with most things in my life. Alone. Naruto finished as he swiftly left the training ground, leaving a heartbroken Kushina behind. Naruto had wanted so very much to have Kushina show such concern for him in his youth. Now, after everything that had happened, such concern felt like ashes in his mouth. The next day, mid-morning, the Higurashi weapon shop. Tenten felt herself sigh heavily as she manned the cash register of her family shop during the morning shift. It was such a boring day. With the Chunin exams being so close, everyone going was getting in some last-minute training. Except her. Sometimes she hated having to help at the family shop. At the back of her mind she also knew all these negative thoughts were born merely of boredom and not of any actual bad feelings for the shop. She was just so damned bored. As if answering her silent pleas for something interesting to happen, the door opened and admitted a frequent customer that Tenten had befriended over the years, Hyuga Yuzuki. Hey, Hyuga-senpai. Tenten said happily. Hey Tenten. Is your dad in? I need his skills. Hyuga greeted the bun-haired girl as she laid her still broken weapon on the counter. The damage to her favorite sword being too much for even her boyfriend Hei to fix, something that bruised his ego a bit. So much so that he had spent nearly a week trying his hand at it before finally admitting defeat. Damn. You've got to tell me the story on how this happened. Tenten exclaimed as she examined the busted blade. It was created from a special strain of chakra metal from Tetsu no Kuni and was specially forged to be even more durable than any standard chakra blade. Even the way to fix it was unique, needing a combination of exquisite chakra control, a specially prepared forge set to a very precise temperature and a deft hand to ensure the integrity and shape of the blade was perfect. Truly a masterpiece. Well, was. Do you know of Hokage-sama's son? Wouldn't be much of a kunoichi if I didn't. Tenten answered impatiently. Son of the Hokage or not, to break such a beautiful blade was a cardinal sin, and if it was done due to some idiocy on his part, then Tenten would give him a piece of her mind. Kakashi senpai, Might Guy and I were tasked in determining his shinobi rank through combat. With a single swing of his shakudo, he managed to cut through my own blade without so much of a nick on his own. Hyuga said to a very disbelieving Tenten. You can't be serious. Did he enhance his blade with massive amounts of elemental chakra or something? Nope. Just brute force and a masterfully crafted shakudo. Hyuga said with a slight smile as she saw Tenten's interest in Naruto skyrocket. Well, his blade. For a blade to be able to cut clean through Yugao's own blade and still look pristine without any kind of chakra enhancement was astonishing. And if there is a blade that amazing in Konoha, then Tenten needed to examine it. Do you know where he'll be at this time of day? While Tenten had heard her teammate Niji speak of Naruto in surprisingly warm tones no less, the branch house Hyuga never gave specifics on him. Then again she never asked considering she had better things to worry about. Who will be Dumpling? A rather deep voice intoned as an incredibly large man, at least 6.5 feet of pure muscle, came out from the back area. This was Tessai Higurashi, second-generation owner of the Higurashi weapon shop and Tenten's doting father. Dad. Don't call me that. Tenten managed to yell while simultaneously pouting. Yugao openly chuckled and shrugged off the small glare Tenten sent her way. Well? Tessai asked again as he also ignored his daughter's weak attempt at a glare. She means Hokage-sama's son, Naruto. He has a blade that managed to cut through my own. Yugao answered him as she handed her broken blade to the now very interested man. He managed it with a finely crafted chikudo and brute strength. No elemental chakra used, nor was there a scratch on his own blade after he cut through mine. Tenten. Tessai said with a tone that demanded attention after spending a few moments to examine Yugao's blade. Why yes. Your shift is done for the day. Go find Hokage-sama's son and see if he would be willing to allow me to examine his chikudo. Oh of course. Tenten answered as she quickly made her exit, much to the amusement of the two adults. You know, she is at that age, and if she and Naruto share an interest in weapons, then it could lead to them spending more time together, and then Yugao mused with a smirk as she saw Tessai look as if he had just been struck. Yugao quite enjoyed the look on his face, she then wondered if some of her friend Anko's sadistic tendencies rubbed off on her. Several minutes later, gates to the Hyuga compound. Tenten was currently catching her breath after frantically running to the Hyuga compound in order to make sure she was out of range in case her father suddenly changed his mind. After a few more moments of deep breathing, Tenten was finally compassed enough to go find Niji and grill him on the possible location of Naruto. After a polite greeting to the guards, Tenten found herself wandering the more public section of the compound before seeing someone that could help, Hinata. Hey Hinata. Tenten called out to her acquaintance somewhat friend. Oh, hello Tenten-san. Hinata greeted her with a smile. Do you know where I could find Niji? He's training with Naruto-kun at training ground 22. Hinata answered with a bit of longing. She would have loved to have gone along with them, but she had to meet with her team in about 20 minutes. Naruto's there? That's perfect. Thanks Hinata. Tenten immediately answered as she ran off to the mentioned training ground. Why did she seem so happy about Naruto-kun being there? Hinata softly asked herself. She couldn't. No, she likes Niji, right? Before Hinata could think on it anymore, she remembered the time and quickly left to go meet with her team. Same time, training ground 22. Niji was currently panting as he took a break from the non-stop sparring that he and Naruto had been doing since the break of dawn. He was also glaring daggers at the smug-looking Naruto who didn't look anywhere near as winded. Although, Niji was silently grateful that he had such a great sparring partner that didn't passionately yell about youth every few moments. Naruto on the other hand was simply enjoying himself. It was nice seeing the once ultra-uptight Niji having loosened up enough to finally somewhat joke around with. So, ready for more? Naruto taunted as he got into a loose stance. You make it sound. Before Niji could answer the taunt with one of his own, he was interrupted by a familiar bun-haired girl charging at him. Instinctively readying himself for an attack, she had a bit of a short temper at times. Niji was rather surprised when she ran right past him. Turning around, and now very dumbfounded Niji stared as his weapon-obsessed teammate berated an equally confused Naruto for breaking someone named Hyuga-senpai's blade. Well, as long as it isn't me she's angry with, I guess it's fine, Niji thought to himself with a bit of amusement as he watched the show. And for another thing, do you know how expensive one of those blades are? The nerve of some people. Miss. Naruto's confusion was quickly morphing into annoyance as a vein above his left eye started to ominously throb. If this turned out to be some bastard villager simply wanting to harass him, well, accidents happen all the time at dangerous places like the training grounds. How anyone could be so bullheaded and foolish. Hello. The one small vein had now grown and started to throb even more dangerously as Naruto approached a meltdown. It's like you want to be yelled at. For commies, shut the hell up. A thoroughly annoyed Naruto finally yelled out. The sudden yell had the intended effect as Tenten found herself speechless while her mind suddenly caught up with her mouth. Tenten had the very embarrassing realization that suddenly appearing and yelling at a virtual stranger probably just soured any chance she had of asking said stranger about his Shikudo. Finally. Now, who are you? Tenten, much to her further embarrassment, was continuing to have a momentary difficulty with speech and was grateful that Niji interrupted the awkward silence that ensued. Although she did notice him failing to stifle a chuckle at what just occurred. She's my teammate Naruto. Her name is Tenten. Why yeah, I'm Niji's teammate. Okay then. Now, is there a reason why you felt the need to yell at me? Especially since I don't think we've ever even met. Tenten couldn't help but notice that Niji was struggling to stifle his laughter off to the side. The bastard. Wanted, that is to say well Tenten then stopped talking, took a deep breath and yelled what she had been trying to articulate. Her choice of words, while truthful with the correct context, were unfortunate however. I wanted to feel up your sword. I have to admit, it takes guts to be so forward. Naruto finally said after a long and very uncomfortable silence. I'm going to go Niji. Naruto said to the shell-shocked boy as he started to walk away. Leaving an even more embarrassed Tenten in his wake. Wait. I didn't mean it like that. I meant I wanted to examine your Chikudo. I work part-time at my family's weapon shop. I swear, I'm not some crazy pervert. Tenten desperately yelled lest she was forever branded as some weirdo to be avoided. At hearing her desperate yell Naruto stopped and slowly turned around with his eyebrow raised. And all the insults. I was angry that you broke my friend Hyuga-senpai's blade. It was a masterfully crafted sword that deserved better. I let my anger at that build until I couldn't control it anymore. Tenten answered honestly as she refused to look at Naruto. The silver-haired nin had a thoughtful look on his face as he could respect getting angry over the breaking of a fine blade. Naruto felt some of the tension that had built up during the encounter leave him as he decided how to approach this. You're kind of an idiot, aren't you? Naruto felt himself smile as he watched the bun-haired girl sputter at his statement. But I suppose that's not a bad thing. Well, sometimes. Naruto mused as he handed his Shikudo to the now confused girl. I'm fine with letting you take a quick look at it, but under no circumstances am I selling it. Thank you. Tenten replied as she started to marvel at the blade. Naruto and the now calm Niji moved off to the side as the weapon-obsessed girl started to do a few slow katas. Naruto was quite impressed with her fluid movements and dancer-like grace as she smoothly transitioned from kata to kata in a mesmerizing dance. He couldn't help but notice her lithe form as she did a particularly interesting kata. The way her firm rear looked as she bent to and fro, the way her perky breasts pushed against her weight. What? Naruto had just learned something about himself, namely something that he seemed to find kinky. He also realized a moment later that the bastard fox would be sure to use this information against him somehow. Damn. Well, are you satisfied now? Naruto asked as he decided to end this before his mind went too deep into the gutter. Huh? Was the intelligent response from Tenten. She had been so wrapped up in putting the strange-feeling sword through its paces that she forgot she had an audience. It truly was a remarkable weapon. The metal was unlike any she had ever seen before and she could swear that it felt alive somehow. She wanted it. Bad. I asked if you were done feeling up my sword. Naruto teased if only to cover up what he had been feeling a moment ago. Depends, are you willing to allow my dad to examine this blade too? My dad owns a weapon shop and I'm sure he'd be willing to work out some kind of payment. Tenten replied as she tried not to let her blush show at the repetition of her earlier gaffe. I'll think about it. Naruto answered as he deftly plucked the Chikudo from the now pouting Tenten's hands. You seem to know your way around a blade, if you ever want to spar I'll be glad to hand you your ass. Naruto offered with a smile that made an odd warmth surge into Tenten's chest. Ask Niji if you want to know more. See ya. Naruto finished as he used a body flicker to leave. It was time for lunch and Hanabi would be angry with him if he was late. Niji, who had kept silent for this entire time, had used his time being invisible to carefully note the reactions of both teens to one another. And from what he saw, Niji knew that this was probably leading to something messy. Well, if it leads to Tenten not being attracted to me anymore, I suppose I could help this along. As her teammate I might as well help her out. Main gates of Konoha, the day before the Chunin exams. Gaara could feel something strange within Konoha. Something both familiar and not. Something that made Mother quiver in fear and rage with unholy hatred. Whatever it was, it needed to die. And Gaara would be the one to tear it apart bit by bit. Meanwhile Temari and Kankuro both maintained a good distance between themselves and their now angrily muttering brother. Their thoughts on the soon-to-be invasion taking a downturn as they wondered if the unstable Jinchuriki would even be able to refrain from going on a killing spree long enough to reach that stage of their plans. They could only hope that whatever made Gaara this unnerved quickly left. Or died. They weren't picky. Hotel for visiting Kumo teams, evening before the Chunin exams. Samui was reviewing the information she and her team had managed to get about their target Naruto. While the dossier they had on him was pretty good, more up-to-date information was needed for them to be able to effectively talk him into defecting. Samui wondered how they would get a private moment with him before blushing and realizing there was a certain way she could get him all alone. Now the question was, should she tell Carrie about her plan? Or try to get him all to herself? Oni no Kuni, outside Shion's personal chambers, evening. The mayor was daydreaming as she waited to be called on by her new boss, the priestess Shion. It was really a stroke of luck that she had come across the priestess caravan as she was traveling. Who knew a random act of kindness, in this case treating one of Xian's retainers for a broken leg, would lead to her being offered a job as a handmaiden. The only way it could be better was if that silver-haired brood had been with her. You'll see him again one day, girl. For now, focus on your job. You'll take him away from the ice bitch sooner or later. Amaru was soon broken from her musings by a now familiar voice calling her. Yes, milady. Amaru answered as she entered the elegant room. The Redeed saw the pretty platinum blonde sitting at her favorite tea table in what appeared to be some kind of rather ritzy pajamas. The two may have known each other for a short time, but they had quickly become friends. It helped that Xian reminded Amaru of how she had been prior to meeting Naruto. I've asked for some snacks to be delivered soon. So please, tell me more of your travels. Xian politely said as the snacks promptly arrived and Amaru slipped easily into the guise of a storyteller. What Amaru did not know was that she had captured Xian's imagination with her portrayals of a certain silver-haired boy. So much so that the priestess now wished to meet him herself. What if neglected Naruto bijuu level harem council bashing? Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.